Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Here's Anna the Beer. Got to get it in or we're done. It's in. Olivia Mount pulls her setter off. Only choice outside. Harper Murray for the match. She got it. Good takedown number 4, Louisville. 25-16, 25-17, and 25-20. On the road, no less. Your Huskers are 10-1.
Shotgun snap for Leonard. Looking right. Going to take a shot. He's got Bo Collins down the sideline. Touchdown, Notre Dame. 38 yards from Leonard to Collins, and it's the first passing touchdown of the year for Riley Leonard.
Second down, Will Howard receives the football. Quick screen goes on the right side of Mckewon. He'll slide to his own 40, get to the 50. Ibuka loose. He's coming left side to the Marshall 30. He's to the 20, to the 10. Beep into the end zone. Touchdown. Mckewon.
Come with an extra rusher, steps up, throws it. He's got his man at the 35, pulls away to the 20, to the 10, and that'll be a touchdown for Bell. That's 37-yard touchdown.
Picked up by Terrence Smith. He's got a lane to the 20, 15-yard line. 10-5. Touchdown. Terrence Smith. Pick 6 for the Dukes. And they've hung 50 on Carolina here in the first half in Chapel Hill.
The snap is back to Altmaier. He goes over the middle. That pass is caught at the 43-yard line. The ball comes out. And it is picked up by Nebraska.
Great play by Johnny Bullock. We call that Johnny on the spot. Just missed the deflection, but gets the strip.
Obviously, tough loss. Had our chances to win. Didn't make enough plays. Didn't play well enough defensively, and then couldn't make the plays at the end offensively to win the game in overtime. So disappointing, and something that we certainly have to learn from. So I'll take your questions.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. I'm Ravi Lulla. That's DB. What's up, DB?
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How about you?
Oh, we're doing all right.
Yeah.
It's a nice kind of brisk morning out there.
Oh, it's perfect. It's starting to get into my wheelhouse here where it's like super fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the fall weather. It's better than the 90 or whatever it was at game time on Saturday.
It's my favorite season, so I'm cool.
It
means a lot, you know. Usually signifies a lot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, the heart of, baseball playoffs, college football, NFL.
October is a elite sports month.
Oh, it's incredible.
It's up there with just about any of them.
Yeah.
Which I will definitely take.
So I, gotta buckle up.
Gotta buckle in.
Yeah.
You ready for the ride?
If that's what it's going to be.
Hopefully it's a little smoother ride than we got on Saturday. I guess we'll just jump right in. Might as well, right?
Sure. We did have a weekend, but why talk like normal people? Let's get right into it.
How was your weekend?
No, nobody cares. My weekend was fine.
Did you get to hang out with Caleb a little bit?
Yeah, he came home for about 18 hours.
Yeah, that's good.
20 hours, but I actually like going through stuff, with him.
Yeah. Kind of like how he processes things.
Yeah, and the more I do, the more I realize, and I have to be careful because I don't like to tell people how to fan. Well, there's just a lot clearly like that we don't know.
Sure.
Right. But we'll run around and we'll be mad and we'll say a bunch of things and it's just kind of what fans do. But I think the big thing for me, it's kind of how I felt like leaving the stadium.
Mm-hmm. Which I saw you after the game. You weren't happy.
No.
Obviously.
No, not at all. But so there's two things. Well, there's actually a couple. So number one, I always want to be the person that can fix it if possible, right? By that I mean, I don't ever want to go into something and just be outmanned or outmatched, or
you just have to throw your hands up
where I'm at the mercy of whatever it is I'm doing.
Yeah. You want to have some
I want to have some control over it.
Yeah.
And some people aren't like that. Some people are just like, man, I can't believe I messed up. I can't do this, I couldn't do this. And so then they go into their fields that way. So it just depends on how you're built. Some people don't like the onus. I do, because there's
some people want it taken out of their hands.
Yeah, like some people just want to say, well, he's just better than me, or she's just better than me, or whatever. And I don't. That's not me. So I left this game, and I'm thinking they're going to be kicking themselves, right? So I like that. The other thing is, and that sounds weird, doesn't it? Like,
I mean, I think the way I understand it is, hey, if you're gonna be in the situation, right? If
you want to be able to fix it,
yeah, because if it's better than just going in and being like, oh, there's nothing we could have done better to beat Illinois.
That's
because that's how we felt in years past against like Ohio State.
Yeah,
right. Or last year against Michigan.
I don't want to be in that spot.
100%. I get that.
Number two is there's a fine line between. Like sometimes you just have to execute like that. At the end of the day, doesn't matter what the play call is. It doesn't matter how it manifests. Like sometimes
you have to hit Lindenmeyer wide open in the end zone.
100%.
I mean, like that's what you're talking about, execution, right? That guy's open. It was the right play call. You just got to hit the guy.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's execution. You can't draw up a better play in that situation.
And we're so afraid to say anything about the quarterback play. Like we just immediately go to the field goal kicking.
Like you think he doesn't know? You think Raiola doesn't know that he's got to make that throw?
It's like, really? But anyway. And that wasn't the only
No,
one,
it wasn't.
Right?
But that's the most
glaring one that we can see.
Yeah, because it's just right there, right in front
of
you.
I mean, never mind sense of urgency in the pocket versus sense of urgency not versus ball security. There's lots.
Versus like when you have to kind of throw off platform versus, hey, let's step into it and rip it. Like there's a lot going on there. And it's not all on Dylan, obviously.
Or for instance, or another one is like we'll hammer, like there's probably a handful of people that understand O-line play.
Yeah.
But there's thousands upon thousands of people that'll tell you we can't run the ball. Sometimes as running backs, like vision matters.
Why did I text you during the game?
So vision matters, right? That's part of it. When we talk about tackling, right? So if I'm trying to keep the fire in the fireplace for my inside run defenders, just layman's terms, right? Yeah. I want to keep it contained. And I know I have a quick trigger as a defensive player. Like I have to quick trigger. Okay.
That just means like make your decision.
So I could make you look like a lot better tackler if I do my job. If I shorten your run
by keeping contained.
By keeping the fire in the fireplace, you're going to look like a better tackler.
Yeah.
Or let's say they personnel group you. At some point, like you can't be enamored by numbers and who's where as much as, okay, just count to 3. If I have number 2, I don't care who number 2 is. I have number 2. If I have number 3, I don't care who number 3 is. And by that, I don't mean the legitimate numbers. I mean the receiver, right? If I have number 3 coming out, or if I have final number 3, or if I have first number 1, like those things matter because what Illinois was clearly trying to do is create confusion, right? So.
And they did a pretty good job of it.
Eye discipline really, really matters. It just does. Like you can't play defense without being dialed.
Yeah. Because if what your eyes tell you, if you don't trust what your eyes tell you, or you're looking in the wrong spots,
you're going to look
really bad.
You're going to look like you're scrambling.
That's how you end up with 3 guys basically on a similar action out wide open in the end zone 3 different times.
Right. The first time, Two of the times, like the last time, the one that went to Bryant when he was lined up at fullback.
Yeah.
I mean, Gifford got picked off. Like if you could see, and I'm not absolving him of responsibility. I'm saying you either got to banjo that man, whatever their call is, like you have to say, hey, take who comes to me. That alleviates the traffic. But what happens is, it sounds easy for me to say. We see this every single week. We just saw Dallas Goddard run down the sidelines for 70 some odd yards because 3 Saints get rubbed off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They all 3 hit each other.
So I think
if it happens to the pros,
it's going to happen.
It can clearly happen in college. Doesn't necessarily indicate coaching prowess.
No.
But
it's super frustrating to see happen.
Sure, it is
3 times and have
sure.
a guy. So that's where I think where the fans come in,
and I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
I'm not addressing. I'm telling you, I'm addressing how Nebraska's got to lick their wounds and get back to the drawing board and get better. Like, this is one of those that you take on the chin, you learn from it, and you go back and you get your ass ready for West Lafayette. This isn't about this is, and I do think Altmaier is playing at a really high level.
He's having a good year. He really is.
I like some of their concepts. I liked how they mixed and matched the running backs based on how they wanted to run the ball. Like, McCray was clearly tougher, not tougher, that's a terrible word, more of a downhill guy than, let's say, Fagan, right? And, they utilized Lil Scat McGee pretty well, too. I liked
I thought they did a really good job using Altmaier's legs in the run game, too.
Yeah.
Like, I think because there's several plays throughout the course of the game where you're like, okay, if he can't run, Nebraska's fine.
And here's the thing. So that's a good point. Now, that's really kind of layman-y, which it has to be, right? QB, run game, buying time. But Nebraska's got to also understand, I may not be able to play. This is a kind of a hypothetical. I may not be able to play a little 2-man, even though I think it'll really shut down these routes because the quarterback has escapability.
Yeah. You got to have somebody.
So you have to kind of negotiate that a little bit, or it's, we say things like, fire Foley. He doesn't like tactically versus technical. I don't have any problems with the philosophy, but when you can't, if you're going to punt the ball to the wrong hash, or if you're going to hang a kick to force a choice, but you don't really hang it, and it's a little low hanger, like, guys still have to run down there and cover.
Yeah.
So that doesn't necessarily mean Foley's a ding dong. We didn't because clearly that's not how it's coached. So the fine line has to be, okay, how much of this is the lack of willingness to change?
Yeah, how much of it is when you say, hey,
fundamentally,
we can't do
that.
this.
That would be that's on the coach.
Yeah, I have to do something else.
Versus
go execute.
Yeah. Because Nebraska, especially for special teams, is in a spot where they have to get back to have a really hard discussion on roster management and who they want to play and who they don't. Because you may have to up your athleticism on special teams.
Yeah.
But that's also a conversation between Coach Rule and Coach Foley where it's like, hey, listen, man, if we're going to burn 4 games and because this guy is going to be on the top kick unit or kick return or whatever, however many guys that is, like you're going to have that conversation. If it can cost you games, you have to address it. So
100%, yeah.
So there's a lot of things. I wanted to put it out yesterday, but I didn't have the energy
to deal with the responses.
No. So it was just me.
Oh, okay.
It was just like my personal mood.
Okay.
All right, because Thursday was Bellevue West.
Yep.
Friday was here. Friday night was Nebraska. Saturday we had to be at West Side of 647. Right. Yesterday I had to be at Channel 7, and then I had to Zoom for our coach's staff because we play Central this week. So I was like, I already don't feel good, so I probably need to rest. No, I didn't anyway because my nephew had his 2-year-old daughter had a birthday party.
Yeah,
it was Too Fast, Too Furious. That was the theme. It was so cool.
That's awesome.
I mean, it's way too many people for me, and they all had babies, so I was
That's a lot.
Really struggling.
I don't I don't go to kids' birthday parties.
Everybody's got solutions to. Oh, we can't do this. Oh, we can't run the ball. We can't do this. And I'm like, listen, I didn't come here to talk about sports.
I'm here for a little cousin.
Yeah, man. So so then I just didn't put it out. But there are so many times where I just want to go back and say, hey, listen, on the goal line in this call, this is what has to happen. Hey, listen, first playing overtime, I get it. Nebraska's in a black, well, we'd call it a black or whatever your terminology is for, play size. See, they see back too.
Mm-hmm.
So they probably think zone, right? Illinois went front side handoff. Fagan stays front side. Nebraska's all moving left.
Mm-hmm.
Gifford's in the box. He's a free runner hitter. He's free. He's unblocked.
Mm-hmm.
He's about 6-7 yards depth. He's playing whatever your technique is. Sometimes we call it bounce. They may call it tap. I'm not sure, but he's buying time.
Mm-hmm.
Hop, 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 run pass, right? Needs a quicker trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Gets beat to the edge. Inexplicably a safety. Takes as poor an angle.
Mm-hmm.
He's unblocked too.
Yep.
Fagan
have two unblocked defenders on the play side.
Yeah.
That should be able
cut back side.
That should be able to make that play.
You would think that it wouldn't
had the opportunity.
That wouldn't go for 22 yards.
That have the opportunity
right?
to make the play before it goes for 20.
So I'm not so sure like
schematically that it was the wrong choice.
It's fundamentally flawed.
Yeah. Guys gotta go make plays.
I don't think it was fundamentally flawed. Like I think
it ends up looking really bad.
Oh, for sure.
It ends up looking terrible.
Yeah, so we lose our mind.
So they're like, what on earth were we doing?
The pick play on the goal line where Ryan gets out.
Same thing with the guys in the end zone.
Right? Like fundamentally the call isn't bad.
Especially when
the big guy came in 94,
mm-hmm.
I'm tempted. I want to. So they basically have. Can I just say this in the first segment? And I know I probably will put it on video. I get it. I just you have to be prepared for the information you're going to get, right? Because sometimes when it's out there and you can deal with it, then you have to walk back some of your thoughts if you shot your mouth off the last 2 days about what should and shouldn't happen or what we think or we don't think we know.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the fine line between not telling you how to fan versus education is we said a lot of things over the last couple of days.
Yeah.
And it's like we'll say anything. We don't even really know sometimes. We'll just say anything. So it's not like if it's out there and you have the information, you're going to be like, oh man, I was just in the moment or, I don't really know. So I just say, so I don't need the pound of flesh. So I don't even know if you want to go through it. But if I have 3 for 3,
mm-hmm.
if I have 3 guys for 3 guys and I'm in man-to-man on the goal line, the one thing that kind of everybody that knows that's in man-to-man, as I would say to our guys, get your eyes out of the backfield.
Yep.
Because when you're in man-to-man, get your eyes out of the backfield.
Because I think that's the thing that bothers people on the Bryant touchdown. Because I know that Gifford
his wasn't the worst.
No, I know that Gifford got picked, but there is, I think it's Bullock is coming up. It looks like his eyes are in the backfield, and he slips right behind.
Okay, but listen, though.
So I think that's what bothers people. I'm not even saying that was his
Hartzog.
assignment.
It was Hartzog.
Hartzog.
Yeah, it was Hartzog.
So he's creeping up, and then he slips right behind him.
So Malcolm isn't.
No, I know, but that's what bothers people.
No, I know, but listen to me.
Yeah,
listen to what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So if Malcolm is responsible for pulling up quarterback or
mm-hmm.
he has first run action to show, because typically you want what we would say 5 for dive. So if you have, at least that's how
mm-hmm.
we would term it. We would use it because it's quick. So I always want 5 guys on inside runner.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Then you have outside runners. We don't use running. You got running back. You have quarterback. We don't talk like that because there's sweep keep where the quarterback will hold.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's the dive back
mm-hmm.
and the jetter or the running back is the outside runner.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't call it by names. So if Malcolm is supposed to set the edge
sure.
and Bullock gets over the top in case you get run action, you still have 3 for 3.
Mm-hmm.
What those guys got to be able to do is pass the coverage off.
Right. So if Gifford gets picked, he's got to pass it off to the next guy who's on the outside already that doesn't get picked.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and you can't stack yourself as a defender. You can't be like equal level.
Mm-hmm.
Like it has to be tiered so you can go behind or you can go in front.
Yeah.
But we've seen plays like this work for 60 years.
Yeah, that's why I always get mad that Nebraska hadn't run like boot with drags basically in the last decade.
Yeah.
That's why it makes me furious because it works for everyone.
Yeah. And it's we go over it's really, really hard
to defend. Yeah.
It,
especially because they don't really call the picks.
We spend probably 15 minutes. No, I'm exaggerating. on a Tuesday or Wednesday, we could spend 8-9 minutes on goal line.
Yeah.
And we'll go through all these things. I can hear Coach Queen's voice now. Hey, when we're in this coverage, you safeties, you got to make sure you have to talk. We got to have 2 for 2. We want to, and we'll go over it and over and over it again. Now, we don't see it near as much as like you do at the collegiate and the pro level, but it is a headache for coaches.
Yeah.
So it's not,
because you have to keep contained on the quarterback.
Yeah.
Because he can either run pass.
Yeah.
You have draggers that
I'm not listen. So I'm not defending the outcome. What I'm saying is sometimes you just have to watch in its totality before we make any sweeping judgments.
And my argument would be, hey, Nebraska's got to do better about not putting themselves in those situations.
To begin with?
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, you could make,
because you're putting yourself in a place where it's really hard to be successful.
You definitely have to play better. You got to get teams off the field on third down.
Yeah.
You cannot.
You got to not have 3 personal fouls. At
one point, what Nebraska finished with 9 penalties or
9
10?
penalties for 90 some yards.
Okay, 7 of those were on the defense.
Yeah.
Like that you cannot do.
You had 1 false start on the offense, and then you had
Was it the block in the back?
Think
no, they waved that off.
Was it a hands to the face?
Yeah,
I think
might have been.
I think it was a hands to the
face.
No, that was on defense
too.
That was
defense.
But
anyway,
yeah, but it was
7 of the 9 were on defense. Like you can't do that.
No,
either.
You're giving away free first downs, free yardage. Like, no, you could probably attribute at least 1, maybe 2 of Illinois' scores directly to extending drives with penalties.
Yeah,
like directly.
And you're not good enough yet to be able to afford
to overcome that
people that luxury. So I just think, like at the end of the day, this is a big film study game, and don't undersell the loss of Tommy Hill either.
So I wanted to ask you about that because I was having these discussions.
There was a little freelancing and communication issues going on in the secondary.
So I was curious about kind of the ripple effects that missing Tommy Hill has, right? So, and tell me if I might be totally wrong on this.
Now, the difference between an excuse and an explanation is what?
Ownership.
So Nebraska's got to own it.
They 100%. But if you lose a guy like Tommy Hill, which I'm going to call a shutdown corner. I know he got beat on the 1 touchdown, but that's how Nebraska views him. That's how he hadn't been thrown at pretty much all year.
Yeah. Did you see I got spun around?
Yeah.
That
was a good move by Bryant.
And and then T Hill's got to tell himself. He's like, listen, man, like I got to up my game.
Yeah, you got to be better than that.
I have to up my game.
But if you've got a guy they consider a shutdown corner, how much does that affect the rest of the defense? Because that's my question.
So let's say, like, even on the corner blitz.
Yeah. The ones here, right?
That was a gamble.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure that was called.
Really?
I think he was pot committed.
Okay.
I really do. I'm going back. Like, I think I'd have to get clarity.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was called. I think he's in no man's land. So he's like, shoot, I better go make a play.
Yeah.
Now, maybe he has an option.
Sure.
But didn't.
Like it's a read.
Yeah. Didn't love it on the rewatch. Real time, I was like, ooh, shoot, boundary blitz.
Yeah.
I like it. Not sure everybody was on the same page. But listen, I'm not going to act like when Jamel Williams gets a safety against Florida.
Yeah.
Like that was a call.
That he was supposed to go.
He did the wrong thing and it paid off. So I understand how that works too.
Sometimes you just got to go make a play.
Yeah.
We've got plenty more to get into with Nebraska. We got a lot of college football to get to as well. And we'll set up our show with our guests for today. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. It's Hurrdat Sports Radio.
will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Yeah, it was disappointing, and I think after last week, you'd have to say that we really were concerned about the tackling, and the tackling showed up again. It wasn't great today. A lot of guys ripping at the ball as opposed to knocking the ball down. The penalties, I'm not going to talk about the penalty. Even at the end, we got hit out of bounds. I have to see what happened before I can comment on them. But we hurt ourselves, in a day where we needed somebody to make a play, and we made a play. Keese knocked the ball out, or I think that was Keese that knocked the ball out. We recovered it. We go down. We have a chance to win the game and end the game. those two things were disappointing. But yeah, defensively, I think we have to go back and really kind of look and see what we're doing and make sure we're doing the right things with the guys that we have. When they spread us out like Colorado did, but the difference was they were able to run the ball in those sets, whereas Colorado didn't run the ball.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We've got quite a bit to get into still. I'm sure this will come up with a lot of people, so let's get...
How about that mangled nail?
You flipping me off right now?
Does that look like it hurts?
That doesn't look like it feels good at all.
Oh, my Lord.
What'd you do?
Just going through drills and it snapped.
Oh, that's the worst.
I want to I need a file. Anybody want to bring me? It's getting caught.
Oh, yeah. I don't have one on me. Let's get to Jack. He wants to talk about line play, which I'm sure a lot of people do on the Hurrdat hotline here. Jack, what's going on, bud?
Hey, guys. Good morning. Good morning. Well, as much fun as the first 3 weeks, but we'll get through it.
Yes. And this too shall pass.
I got 2 questions for you.
Okay.
Not statements, just questions. I felt like that the first thing that happened wrong, and maybe I'm wrong, is how we got dominated on the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
Altmaier.
Jack, I don't know if I can agree with the dominating thing. I really don't.
All right. Well, tell me why.
So a couple of things so could I get pass rush from one of my interior linemen that was kind of getting doubled? No. So I agree with you there, right? Why couldn't we push the pocket from the middle? But I don't know about dominating based on how Altmaier could kind of buy some time and get out of the box. I'm probably nitpicking over the D word. I think
it's okay. It's okay.
Right? Okay. So I'm not bleh, but I'm just I don't know.
All right. I won't argue that point.
Well, I mean, they ran the ball for 4 yards a carry, and I get it. But Fagan only went 12 for 69, and one of those was the 22-yarder or 23-yarder in overtime. So are you talking about pass rush?
Yeah, DB.
Yeah. You're right. That you're right. You're right. Yeah.
Cover their people and their people.
Yeah. So you're right. So that's one of those things I think film is going to really help. So Nebraska's going to have to. That's a great point, Jack. Now that I know you're talking about pass, because Nebraska's going to have to figure out against what level of competition do they want to bring 5 or dare I say 6. I don't know if they'll ever be bringing 6, but if you're not getting home with 4 and you were able to do that for a long time, you may have to adjust because the balls are coming out kind of hot, right? And you don't have a ton of time. So if you come with 4 and you don't get there, you have an eternity. So that's kind of the dilemma.
All right, I got another question for you, DB, since this is kind of your field of study. They have talked so much about getting turnovers and ball hawking and doing all this stuff, which is great. But can you take that to a level where that starts hurting tackling?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, that kind of looks like on some of this, they're going and I'm not saying every play, but it just seems like there's it kind of showed up against Northern Illinois.
Well, Deshaun Singleton doesn't get the face mask penalty if he's not ripping at the ball post play, right?
All right.
So MJ Sherman doesn't get the personal foul if he's not trying to punch the ball out,
right? So
I'm glad. I want them to get their turnovers. I mean, we got to have them. I mean, we can't lose the turnover battle like we did last year. I want them to have them, but is there just a place there where you got to use a little more judgment on that stuff?
That's a good.
All right, my other question, and this is a rules question, and I'm not on the refs. I ain't one of those guys that the refs calls the game. Yada yada. Maybe they did, but that's football.
Okay.
Okay. On Luella's touchdown where they called it an interception,
Yes.
he clearly had control of the ball as he crossed the line of scrimmage, as he crossed the goal line.
Yeah.
At least it looked like that to me. Now, I thought the rules of football was when you cross the end zone, the play is over.
Mm-hmm.
You're done.
Mm-hmm.
It's
and
supposed
it
to
looked
be
more like the guy took the ball away from him after they were actually I'm not saying they were on the ground, but they were well on their way to the ground after they had crossed the end zone. So what am I missing there?
Yeah, that's a fantastic first call, and I appreciate it, Jack. I think so. On the first time around, I even said on the broadcast, yeah, I thought it was a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Because typically, like if I'm a running back and I reach the ball across the goal line and somebody knocks it away, it's still good.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen quarterbacks jump over the pile and extend the ball and it gets knocked.
There's a problem with that, though.
Go ahead.
We don't know what completing a catch is.
Yeah, so I'm getting there.
Yeah.
So that ball gets knocked out. But the problem with those examples is they're all runs.
Yeah, you already have the ball.
Now, but I do know I have seen wide receivers go to the goal line, touch the ball with the pylon,
mm-hmm.
or touch the ball to the pylon,
mm-hmm.
and it gets knocked away, and it's not a touchback. It's still a touchdown because they talk about that invisible plane. So clarity on what a catch is in the end zone would really, really help.
Yeah. Now,
if you need to complete the catch, if we should call Mar. We could call Ken or Kevin. If you have to complete the catch in the end zone, which you clearly seem to since Calvin John, you clearly catching the ball in the end zone is different.
Which is
for
weird.
For why I don't know.
Which is weird. I mean,
full disclosure.
It seems like the rule for catching the ball is different in the end zone than it is the entire rest of the game.
Than any place else.
Doesn't make a ton of sense.
So if I'm operating under that
mm-hmm.
deal that it's different, it was an interception.
Yeah.
Like it was an interception. If
we're operating under that construction.
And I don't even remember, I don't like real time when I thought it was a catch and then I looked at the replay. I think I'm like, well, I was wrong. Like I didn't see
mm-hmm.
the bobbling and the deal. Like if you have to complete the catch in the end zone, which you clearly must.
You do. I don't know why it's different, but you do.
Then it's
right.
It's an interception.
Now
I
thought originally I was kind of like you. I didn't realize the ball came out as early as it did.
So yeah, so when I first saw it, I was like,
then he took it.
I'm like, wow, foot down, elbow down,
and then he takes it.
Play dead.
Right.
Just like what we saw in the punt return in the ATL last
mm-hmm.
night, right? No, normal time, that looks like a fumble.
But Nayer's got it.
But he gets the benefit of the doubt of saying his forearm was down.
Yes.
Even though his knees weren't down on that punt return,
mm-hmm.
right?
But Nayer's got it. And then as he's bringing it in, that's when it starts to slide out before he hits the ground.
Yeah.
If he hits the ground first, I think it's a touchdown.
So I think.
And if it's anywhere else in the field, it's a catch.
Yeah. As it stands right now, that's a pick.
Yeah. I mean, it's the way they call the rules, that's a pick.
Now, I was surprised, though, that Coach Rule was as animate as he was with the wide receivers.
Mm.
Because, yes, that was the second time that a ball got wrested away from a wide receiver. And sure, you could blanket it and say, yeah, you know what? We just need to be more physical on those 50-50 balls. But those guys fought like crazy on Friday night.
Oh, yeah.
There were not a lot of easy catches.
No, they weren't. I mean, Banks made some incredible catches.
So I was like, well, I mean, okay, if the standard is the standard, I get it. And maybe, you know what I really think?
What?
I'm going to say, I think we can handle this because this is just me speculating. I think Nair is a guy that they have to coach pretty hard.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I think they do. I'm going back to the chasing three. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he's a guy that I don't want to like shape his personality, but they apparently coach him pretty hard.
Yeah.
And it's for a reason.
Well, the reason might be because they think he's really good.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know. I'm just
for sure.
It just seems to be a thing because Coach Rule they got him on the sidelines.
We'll have more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Just got to finish the catch. Dylan did a good job of putting the ball out there. I got to do my part of just, finishing in the catch. Those are, plays that need to be made, and it's on me to go out there and just, finish that.
It's been 11 years since Jack Hoffman scored a touchdown in the Nebraska spring game, bringing pediatric brain cancer to the forefront of everyone's attention. And since then, they've raised over $13 million with the Team Jack Foundation for pediatric brain cancer research. And this Thursday, you've got another opportunity to get involved with the 12th annual Team Jack Foundation Radiothon presented by the home agency. Make sure you get to teamjackfoundation.org to tune in, to donate, or to find other ways to get involved. If you want to get involved with the show, give us a call, 888-638-4876. But you better be as good as Jack was.
I'm contemplating pushing. You can tell, man, the sleep deprivation. I got the puffy eyes the whole night. I want to put these pictures out so bad on social media. I'm just not.
Pictures of what?
So, like, you can see you.
Oh, like screenshots.
Yeah, this is kind of like terrible radio, but I'm just like going through the pre-snap alignments and the talking and what I think guys see. It's just some of the stuff is just a recipe for disaster. And we're going to want our pound of flesh, obviously, because now I hear, and I got a couple good ones over the last couple of days. You know, I always get fix it, talk us off the ledge. Or some guys are even passive aggressive. I told you so. But however it comes, I do think there's chances for everybody to learn, right? Me, you, the whole deal. And so I felt like it was kind of interesting. So let me just tell you the juxtaposed positions. Okay. This is one of my guys. You know, his kids play at a fairly high level. I think he understands the game pretty well, and he's kind of easy to talk to. He said, rewatched the game last night. It says, defensively, looks like we typically had guys in position and at times either missed or took themselves out of position. That's my non-expert impression, so I could be completely off on that. But I do take back my comment about White seemingly guessing, because he's one of those, I think, I had to go back because I probably missed it during the broadcast. If he texted during the broadcast, but said it, I think he must have intimated that White must be guessing. He says, one question I do have is when our ends are immediately moving inside, it looks like inside linebackers are supposed to get to the edge, but weren't getting there. Or in the case of the first play in OT that I alluded to in above, it didn't seem like they were even trying. Not sure exactly what happened there. It just seemed like it didn't go well when our outside guys made that hard move inside. Okay. So I'm already interested, right? I'm like, okay, this is pretty good. Like
he's paying attention.
He's paying attention. Yeah, he's clearly paying attention. So that was like one fan's stance, right? It was, I said a bunch of things, or I said a thing. I took some time. I'm going to come back to it. There was some football ease in there, which I didn't need. Like he and I, we've talked about like kids, like we could talk. I think I could talk to him about pretty much anything. So I took some time. I'm like, hey, I think this, and this happened. I was going to attach the pictures. I didn't. Now, conversely, and this isn't bad either. I just think it's different because I think we want a pound of flesh from somewhere. So this is a different perspective. He didn't even bring up defense. Now this is after the Illinois game, because before the Illinois game, it was like 0.45 maybe. But he's a good analytics guy. I think he's decent with numbers, even though he doesn't realize that analytics is clearly ruining the NFL.
I thought it was the two high safeties that were ruining the NFL.
I think it's bad quarterback play. I think it's piss poor quarterback play. Like Mel Kiper can beat it. Don't get me started on this again. Like
Tony Dungy's like, yeah, this has happened. This has existed since the 60s.
What'd I say?
He's like, I stole it from the old Steelers year playbook.
Right? Like, see, football. All we could do is roll our eyes at that. Like that. What was going on the last 2 weeks is ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's bad for sports.
I'm just baiting you.
And like I tell you, people can make you dumber. I couldn't believe he even said it. He said 0.36 points per play. Yes, defense needs to be better, but you can't hang your hat on being excellent on defense and average on offense. Looking at most of the offensive stats, we are meh. So I'm full disclosure. I'm reading this as a guy that knows that he does not like Coach Satterfield.
Sure.
Now he will tell me he's open,
but you can tell.
But I can kind of tell. Okay. Looking at most of the offensive stats, I said we were mad. He said,
"Oh, I think I know who this is."
How can we assume that last week on the 4th and 3, and then building on that later in the season, that you can kick it in nearly the same scenario? Well, number one, you can't. Put some of the issues for some of the issues on special teams, you either coach it or you allow it. This goes for personnel decisions in the offseason. So we addressed that special teams thing a little bit, right? Like you are going to have to really make your mind up on roster management.
Yep.
Okay. Like
that's a real thing.
He's dead on there. But let's go back to points per possession and like what Nebraska was attempting to do.
And first, before we get into that real quick, I have to say, what he said about you can't be excellent on defense and average on offense is the exact opposite of A, what everyone in the offseason was saying.
Yeah.
And B, how a lot of teams win football games.
100%.
Anyway,
did you watch Michigan?
Yeah. Which average is generous on offense.
Did you watch Utah?
Yes. And again, average is generous on offense.
Okay. There's a lot of teams that
do exactly that.
Yeah.
If not a little worse on offense. Anyway, sorry. That's all. I just want to make sure that was
even
addressed.
Even Georgia to some degree.
Yeah. Alabama won a lot of national titles being excellent on defense and average on offense.
Boy, how about almost getting a Vandy win outright?
I know.
Anyway,
points per play. Sorry. I didn't mean to derail you. That had to be addressed.
So do you know what Nebraska was in the red zone?
In terms of how many opportunities versus So they scored on the Bonner touchdown. They scored on the Nair. Is it 2 for 2?
They were 4 for 4 in the red zone.
Oh, yeah, they had the 21-yard field goal. That's 3. What was the fourth one?
Whatever the touchdown was. So they had
the Bonner, the Nair, the field goal,
and the little back shoulder.
Oh yeah, the other Nair touchdown.
Yeah,
I forgot that was inside 20.
Do you know how long Illinois had the ball in the third quarter?
That's where they made up a bunch of the time, I think.
Do you know how long they had the ball in the?
I would guess 9 minutes.
10:45.
Yeah, that's a long time.
So, if an offense is going to have the ball for 3/4 of a quarter, and you're limited in possessions, and one of those possessions in the second half ends up a non-touchdown, and you miss the field goal, it's easy to tell me 0.3
points per possession, or points per
possession.
Play. Yeah.
If Lindemeyer catches that, if the ball is on him and they score,
we're having a different conversation.
And it's monumental. You're well into the 4s.
Yeah. And
you're on par.
And if you take both of them, if you give me Nair and you give me Lindenmeyer.
Yes, blank person, and he probably wouldn't care. But yes, I get it when you just look at empirical data.
But that's not how the game played out.
But that's not how the game played out.
Yeah. I actually thought
that's not how the game played out. Nebraska's points per possession are incredible if Nair catches that pass and Lindemeyer gets the ball. Yeah. Like, you're probably in the 0.5s.
And you're talking about fractions of inches difference there. You're not talking about giant ifs, ands, or buts.
So while I hear you,
and we're not even talking about the field goal.
So I hear him. Like I clearly hear his heart. I just want people, and I said I wasn't going to do this, but I'm making an emotional plea. No, I'm just playing. If we are going to talk football, we have to talk it all. We don't
get a cherry pick.
We can't just cherry pick the data to support us.
I'm one
because I'll go either way, just like with my other guy. Like if you want to get into it, we can.
Yeah.
If you don't,
or if you
just want to keep it general and be a fan, I'm cool with that. But if you're going to hit me with data,
you can't just like dip the toe in the water.
No, we're going there.
Here's the issue I have with points per possession, right? That's one of those. It's kind of like plus minus in the NBA
or hockey.
That's
which
one
is
of those
extremely overrated.
That's one of those large sample size data sets.
Yeah.
Right. Like plus minus in the NBA over the course of a game doesn't always tell you much. Over the course of a season, you get a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
Right. Points per possession, I think, is the same way because over the course of a season, those one or two plays tend to
I'm with you.
average themselves out.
I'm with you.
Over the course of a game, you're talking about, okay, if they uphold a call instead of reverse a call, or if a kick is made, or if a ball is put on Lindemeyer, like we're talking about drastically different numbers. So that's where I think sometimes people get out over their skis a little bit with analytics, is analytics are based on large sample sizes. And then we try and use them to make decisions in small sample sizes, and then we get mad when it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right.
My man Shane 402 and Johnny the Pig, they got some good stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good stuff out here.
There is. Coming up next,
we'll try to get to it all.
We good thing we got a week.
Yeah.
We've got Sam Mckewon coming up next from the Omaha World-Herald. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. It's Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is the sports editor for the Omaha World-Herald, Sam Mckewon.
That's fine.
Sam Mckewon.
We're gonna throw the ball, and you just stand back there and throw it where you want to go. And that kind of thing.
Sam Mckewon.
Are you guys going? Sure.
Now, Sam Mckewon.
Take the handoff. Pressure from behind. The football is loose. Nebraska's on it. Pressure from the backside. Jarred away from Altmaier. Sierra Wright and Mackay Bear team up to get the football back for Nebraska.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're joined now by Sam Mckewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, how are you this morning?
Hey, guys. How are you?
Oh, well, no, we're
doing
good.
all right.
I mean, I'm spent, but I'm enjoying. See, I like stuff like this, Sam, like my personality, because I'm in the solutions business. So I like to process and talk through things. So the varying perspectives I think are interesting. And at the end of the day, I'm kind of landing on we want our cake and we want to eat it. We don't want our cake and we want to eat it too. It's like it just depends on people will argue based on what they want to be right about as opposed to getting it right. How do you think Nebraska's staff is going about getting it right?
Well, based on what I saw on Friday, I think there's going to be a lot of, and based on what I heard from the players, right, and just like the defensive players and the way that they reacted, and some of the things that might have been under some of the statements, I think they have to get all of kind of air out whatever frustrations they may have about miscommunications and guys doing things out of the structure of the defense. In other words, guys trying to go make plays when what they really need to do is just take care of their business and take care of their assignment. Because you heard so many players on Friday night say, it's just do our 111th, do our job. And you go back and watch the game and you can see that that some of what Illinois did was Illinois and some of it was Nebraska just
clearly
not doing what it's supposed to do.
Clearly.
Yeah. And so, I think that part, the defense has probably got to get together and figure out why they weren't on the same page and what the trust level is, because some of the mistakes that were made were more about, I don't think this guy's going to do, apparently, I don't think this guy's going to do what he's supposed to do, so I have to go make this play.
So
I think that's something to think about. And then on the offense, we can talk about that too, but there are lots of thoughts I have about the offense, but they're not there weren't alarm bells coming out of Friday night. I mean, Dylan Raiola missed a pass. Well, that happens. And there were a lot of good things about Nebraska's offense on Friday. So that's not my primary concern coming out of the game.
Sam, what did you see from Nebraska that you're like, hey, I think this is a fix they can make, or you just kind of have to do your assignments a little bit better here and there versus these might be bigger issues that I'm concerned about moving forward?
Well, you can't control the kicker or the punter situation. And you can't. There might be people who can control that in the sport, but they're very few. And it's like telling a caddy, go fix your golfer's swing. And just go do it. No, the club is in the golfer's hand. He's got to go out and make the swing and put it on the green. And, how helpless must it have felt for both Missouri and Vanderbilt head coaches on Saturday watching guys miss really makeable kicks all day long. They can't swing the club for their kickers, and neither can Nebraska. So Matt Rule can put that kicker out there, whichever kicker it is, and say that's a makeable kick. And that's very true. But it's like saying, hey, in practice, when we walked the course for 4 days, that shot was made. But, on Sunday, on the back nine, which is basically the atmosphere of that kick, right? That's the most important kick of the kid's life in a situation he's never been in. And you're like, go out and make the swing. And you can trust him to make the swing, but it's hard to make the swing in that circumstance. And then the punter situation, we don't need to go any further into that. I mean, that's been an ongoing thing, in my opinion, for a while now, of like expecting a result and then kicking it across the field in a very, confusing kick. So those things are hard to control. They're just going to have to get better, and you're going to have to hope that they improve. I think a lot of the other things are pretty fixable. Like the defensive issues can be a 1 or 2 game issue. They can go to Purdue and they can play more soundly. I think on the offensive side of the ball, there's not a lot like wrong. There's things that they think they can improve. Just my opinion, I thought that offensive line played awfully well for a lot of the game on Friday night.
Okay. You're going to get me on two
You do
things.
not?
No. Hang on, my guy.
Okay.
So there's 2 things I want to address. Number one, I think you're right. I do think the offense. I didn't get the maligning of the offensive line. I'm like, wow, people can truly make you dumber, and it's not. Yeah. And sometimes it's not fans. It's like people that do what we do, and I'm like, what are you watching? Number one. So I'm in complete agreement with you, but I want to go back to something. I want to go back to your analogous deal with the golfer and the club, because I think Coach Rule, and especially watching it with a couple of players this weekend, one happened to be Caleb, but then I got 2 other guys that I got a chance to bounce some things off of. Listen to when Coach Rule says this and tell me, does this not affirm basically what you're saying about walking the course, the club, the execution? Because what I hear is, okay, guys, if we're going to control what we can control, coaches, we have to do this, but we also have to understand who's in the game. Shane, play the clip.
Yeah, it was disappointing. And I think after last week, you'd have to say that, we really were concerned about the tackling, and the tackling showed up again. It wasn't great today. A lot of guys ripping at the ball as opposed to knocking the ball down. The penalties, I'm not going to talk about the penalty. Even at the end, we got hit out of bounds. I mean, I have to see what happened before I can comment on them. But we hurt ourselves, in a day where like we needed somebody to make a play, and we made a play. Keese knocked the ball out, or I think that was Keese that knocked the ball out. We recovered it. We go down. We have a chance to win the game and end the game. Those 2 things were disappointing. But yeah, defensively, I think we have to go back and really kind of look and see what we're doing and make sure we're doing the right things with the guys that we have. When people they spread us out like Colorado did, but the difference was they were able to run the ball in those sets, whereas Colorado didn't run the ball.
Doing what they're doing with the right people they have in the game, but making sure that the coaches understand who's in the game, and then kind of intimating, listen, let's not play hero ball. Let's do what we're asked to do. So I felt like in one long answer, especially off the cuff, he pretty much told us how they're going to approach this week, right? Like that's what I hear, and that's also what I hear in your explanation. I thought that was an amazing answer given the question, how quickly it happened after the game.
Yeah, it's a good answer. I think that probably as the game's going on real time, Rule's able to assess certainly the issues on defense. There's a lot of different things at play there. Late in the game, he talked about it. They went to sort of man-to-man, and it just didn't go very well.
Nope.
And
you saw it twice on the goal line.
Yeah. And the overtime touchdown, again, I don't know exactly. I don't think he's going to call anybody out. I don't know exactly what the assignments are there. The overtime touchdown, Gifford's running. That seems like an almost impossible play for Gifford to make. So I feel like there's somebody else that was supposed to cover Pat Bryant there. And then on the jumbo tight end touchdown, it's pretty obvious who was supposed to take him, and you got 3 guys pursuing the quarterback, and I think that may be because
get your eyes out of the backfield.
Right, there's some concern that he's going to run, and he can run, and Nebraska knew going into the game what he was going to do and how he was going to do it, and he was able to be successful in getting out several times, and maybe that's something that they can look at. There's a lot of different things at play. Landmarks when you're rushing the passer, landmarks when you're coming after a guy and he's rolling out and you're getting so far inside that he's able to get outside of that. And, you got guys dropping into coverage. You probably haven't done that very much. And you have, and it wasn't even that big of a deal. Kyle Wallen drops and they get a 12-yard play. So what? You can live with that. But then there's other circumstances where it's 3rd and 7 and you got two guys covering a tight end while Franklin's wide open. Well, somebody, I don't know who's supposed to drop there, but is it the responsibility of Prince William and Yellen to follow Franklin across the field? Probably not. I don't think so. I think Prince William probably did what he was supposed to do there. So there's just all these little things where they got to go back and correct some of the things that they didn't do right. It stings that it has to come in the circumstance of a loss. And the reality is, and this is not a comment on Raiola at all, if that throws there, then they learn all these things having won the game. Because I don't think Illinois was going back down the field and tying it at 31. The reality is, the pass was just a little long. The guy running the route's not their starting tight end.
I think that's irrelevant because, and I don't mean to cut you off, Sam. I heard that a ton. Why is it Lindemeyer? It works because it's Lindemeyer. We act like we didn't just watch a wide receiver lineup at fullback for Illinois or an 18th string tackle play tight end for Illinois. Lindemeyer's plenty capable. He's caught balls before. Just throw him the ball. Just throw him the ball.
Yeah.
Let us know if he's good enough as opposed to, why was he listen, man, do we not understand personnel packages? The play worked because of that tight left eye formation. Nebraska had shown a tendency. It worked for that reason, right? The Lindemeyer thing is inconsequential. It really is.
Well, yes. I mean, I think what I'm saying, I don't know if, I think Thomas Fedoni's blocked pretty well this year. So, could he have been, would Illinois have been more concerned about covering him? Probably.
Yeah. But if they switch positions, it's a different alert. And so sometimes again, and I don't know if Illinois did this, but I'll give you a por ejemplo. For example, if we have a guy and he's a number one receiver and he lines up in the backfield, I'll say, hey, there's a new number one. Look for this. If Fedoni and Lindemeyer exchange responsibilities, you may not get the free, you get the corner. So where he is in relation to the play design, I think absolutely matters.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, and Dylan there, I'm sure he thinks about, what they'll coach him on is same thing that Pat Mahomes was talking about last night. He, after the game, and I try to watch Mahomes' press conferences because I find them interesting because he's not like a lot of other quarterbacks in the way that he thinks about things. I actually appreciate the way he talks about things. But he's like, I got to get better. My base has got to get better. I've been trusting my arm too much. And I think Dylan is probably leaning back a little bit there and throwing it a little, he probably could have been a little bit more, whatever you want to call it. But there's pressure coming and, I'm sure he feels bad. And there's, this is adversity that he'll have to work through. But I just didn't walk out of that Friday night game thinking that any of that game or why they lost was really on Raiola. I mean, he did a lot of really good things. He wasn't perfect, but I think Sip had a column Sunday and he made a good point.
That's probably not true, but I'll hear you out.
I'm
totally joking.
That we did there was a lot of expectations on Adrian Martinez to rescue Nebraska from things that he had to rescue them from because they didn't have that stuff right. And as a result, Adrian's asked to do things and Adrian, wasn't perfect. And, that's a good point that there was a lot of times when it felt like, well, if Adrian had only done this, and I'm like, yeah, kind of. I mean, that's true.
But you can say that and still want a guy to get rid of the ball in the pocket or have better ball security too, right?
Yeah. The biggest concern for Friday night from Dylan was the two fumbles that were recovered by Nebraska. You can't have the ball down there, and that could have lost the game, and that would have been. That's probably the thing where it's like, man, you can't do that. You can't have the ball down there and you got to have it up because that's going to get stripped. And it was twice. And he was fortunate enough that it was recovered both times. But I think there's a lot of things about Nebraska's offense that's working. I think they could run the ball more. And again, you're the running back, so you know way more than I do about this. I just feel like Emmett Johnson needs a couple of totes.
I'm probably with you there. That game for me, this is oversimplification, but that game for me, based on how I think Illinois situationally fits on the perimeter with their secondary guys and how their linebackers were playing, that was a vision game where you wanted to play to guys that could find creases as opposed to needing them to be there. Because I felt like Illinois is pretty well coached, and their back end could tackle. So that game was about vision. We left some yards out there, in my opinion. People will hand wring and they'll make a big deal about Mazuka versus Latovsky or whatever. But like sometimes backs have to help you out too,
Oh, no question. And Dante had a really nice.
You can't cut across guys' face, right? I mean, Fagan didn't look great all night until he made a play, and we're not talking about Illinois' lack of ground game because that 23-yarder at that point he had 11 carries for 51 yards. Like we're not.
Yeah. He was great late. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like sometimes it's just. Your running back's got to make a play for you.
Yeah, and so I think one of the things that, and we've talked about this many times before, there's an art to being a great running back. It's fun to watch really great running backs even today, even though they're not relied upon the same way as they were 30 years ago. And I think you can hit a hole 100 miles an hour every single time, and that's great when the hole's really big. But sometimes you have to have a little bit of just, I don't know, you're running at 97% because that last 3% is made for a cut. That I just feel like sometimes Emmett Johnson makes. And again, maybe it's just, maybe I'm missing that. And maybe there's things that I don't quite, maybe there's things in practice that he's not getting done. I just, I've seen this guy make runs, especially in fourth quarters. And he didn't get any carries. And there was also, you get to overtime and the first statement is, well, we're going to take a shot. And I'm like, why? Okay. Okay. Like you want to score the touchdown on the first play, and then because you don't want to, and I'm thinking, is it because you don't want to deplete your plays? Because if you score right away, then you can go out on offense on the next drive and have your full complement of playbook. I don't I get that. And those are all questions that we can ask Rule today, and there's too many questions about that kind of theory to really get into it for an hour. And it's annoying too, because it's like at the end of the day, he's going to say, wait, we didn't lose this game because of anything we did on offense. We lost because of defense. And I get that.
I mean, to some degree, but yes and no.
It doesn't have anything to do with the offense on Friday. That's what he said. Yeah.
I know, but that was at first blush. I think he thinks that there are some plays they left out there. I would hope that he feels that way.
Oh, sure. I mean, I think that's probably true. There's a lot of different ways that you could look at how the game's managed in the fourth quarter. Should they have put the kicker out there? I totally understand where he's coming from, and he's the coach. I'm not. In overtime, and maybe this is because I've seen all the overtime games over the last decade. I've watched Nebraska try to go out and score right away, and I watched Tommy throw a pick at Miami. And I think that was the first one. That was the first overtime game where it got blown out of proportion. I've watched other overtime games where, they're trying to score right away and they fumble or whatever. And I'm standing there on the sideline and I'm like, they should go on offense first.
No way.
I know people completely disagree with that. And no, you need to go on defense because you need to know what they're going to do. And I thought to myself, you put Illinois out there, they're going to score right away. You're going to have to go out there and you're going to have
but they hadn't been doing that. So why would you have thought that?
Well, the only thing that constrained Illinois from scoring at the end of regulation was the clock. And so I think Illinois was very comfortable going into overtime. I think they were fine and would have, but I get it.
But
the play is always to go on defense first.
They scored 7-3, 7-7.
Yeah.
So
I know. I know.
Okay.
I think that going into overtime,
all right,
the advantage was for again, and this is so. Here's part of why I say teams should consider going on offense more often. I think there's a pressure that is created, especially on a kicker. If the first team goes out and scores even 3 or 7 or whatever, there's a ton of pressure on the offense that then goes out after that to match it. And there's a lot of pressure on the kicker. And we saw that on Saturday, in the Missouri Vanderbilt game. Like that guy, well, first of all, he looked like a cross-country runner put in a football uniform. And I felt for that kid. And not a ton of people around here really like Missouri. So like, I'm guessing the state of Nebraska, about 98% of the state of Nebraska is rooting for Vanderbilt in that game. Right. And so like, he goes out there, and that was an easy kick. That was not a hard kick, and he made a 55-yard earlier in the game, and he hooked that thing into the lake. I mean, that thing might have gone into the bleachers if it had been a longer kick, and it's because of the pressure. And so, like, I think there's an argument to be made for going on offense because you control the emotional temperature of that moment.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm wrong, but, like, Nebraska has not even – they've only attempted in the overtimes that they've had since 2015, I think they've only attempted 1 field goal. Like they haven't even had, and that was the one they missed at Colorado in 2019, and it was like 50 yards because they kept going backwards. But like they haven't even tried to score because they haven't even put a kicker out on the field very often. And so obviously they weren't going to do that. They started on defense, and then they were immediately in a tough spot because Illinois scored right away. And so you knew it was like, oh boy, here we go. And, and then those last 3 plays didn't go well. And Damon, I heard from so many people who were ticked off about the overtime offense. Mm-hmm. I was like, they were furious. And I'm like, well, okay, I get it. They were mad. They were like, oh, what was that? They quit. And I'm like, they didn't quit. Come on now. That's not
That
true.
is so ridiculous.
People are keyed up. People really want this team to be good.
Yeah, no, I get it. And you know what, Sam? They're going to be. You watch.
Here's another thing I heard, and I've heard this now for a couple of weeks. By goodness, they finally have a quarterback. They better be good. So there's this sense of like a lot of people really like Dylan. They like him, and they love watching him already. And it's like, better not screw it up. Like that's some of the feeling of the fan base is like, we finally got a guy. We finally got another Tommy or whatever. Boy, better win. Because this guy's good, and I think that's shaped by what happened last year and a few other things. Like last year, the quarterbacking was subpar, and they probably should have won more games than they did. And now they have a quarterback who's not subpar; he's good, and I think fans are like, oh my goodness, don't win games with this guy. I think that's the field.
Sam, we appreciate the time as always. Good stuff there. We'll talk to you again next week.
Did we solve all the problems?
I think we got. We got a good start.
We're just putting one foot in front of the other, Sam. We got to figure out.
You got to get a business card that says Damon Benning Solutions.
Yeah, fix it.
And you just, and it's got your number on it, and it's got an email address, and you're just like you're like Winston Wolfe. I'm in the solutions.
I'm trying to figure out how we kicked the ball for 50 yards a punt and only netted 30 yards. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Oh, I'm the wrong person to talk to about that. They could have went out and got anyway. We'll talk about it.
Wow.
We'll talk to you later, Sam. We appreciate it as always. We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Yeah, it's it's not really the defense's fault. It's our job to just score regardless of circumstance. They had a fine old machine on offense, and their quarterback played his butt off. And hats off to them. Had a great game plan, and there's really no added pressure. It just comes down to execution, and I think our defense played very well. But there's some little things that we want to obviously get back and can obviously change the outcome of the game.
If you want somebody else that's got a great game plan, it's your people at Ep Foundation Repair, because they're local experts based in Lincoln, Nebraska. They're deeply familiar with soil conditions, building practices, and everything else they need to know in order to offer tailored solutions. Get to epconcrete.com to find out all their services, what you need for foundation repair, basement waterproofing, crawl space encapsulation, and more. That's epconcrete.com. DB, I'm having a little bit of trouble with some of the narratives out there.
Oh, there's several. Where would you like to start?
I mean, I've got there's a lot because I don't want to sit here and pretend like nothing went wrong on Friday, because that's obviously not true.
Yeah,
right?
Clearly. But multiple things can be true at once.
I also think a lot of the way people feel is baggage from previous years and isn't really about Friday. Did things go wrong on Friday? Absolutely. But I also think watching that game, and I've gone through three full rewatches at this point.
Okay.
Right. Watching that game, I thought it in the moment, and I've thought it on each rewatch. I thought in the middle of that game, Nebraska was way closer to pulling away than they were to losing.
Okay, so there's a couple things in there. Number one, I agree, right? That's why I said, and listen, everybody's got their own opinion, and I don't know if I would ever choose. The overtime thing is killing me.
Yeah, I'm not even getting the overtime thing.
But because that is that's putting old stuff on the new stuff.
100%. Because what we hear, man, haven't gotten a first down in 10 years in overtime. How many of those were with Coach Rules? 1, right? Last year, 1, 2 now. Okay. But we're talking about 10 years of baggage. You can't blame your current wife for stuff your ex-wife did.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's not how that works.
If you do, you're probably not.
If you do, you're going to have a second ex-wife.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's how that works. You can't treat your new wife poorly because of baggage you have from your ex-wife. Like that's not how life works. And if you do, again, as I tell you all the time, go to therapy.
Right on cue before you get to your next point. It's from my buddy. Hey guys, we really need to get over the past and start making our own story, but also we're going to throw out basic logic because of our overtime history, and we haven't scored a point in OT since we were all in diapers. Like that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, 100%.
Like what about Illinois that off and get it? I am with you and Sam and Dylan. Altmaier played well.
He did.
2 starters.
He's played well all year.
2 stars that I'm talking to from the defense. We're like, that guy's pretty good.
He played well all year.
He's really comfortable in that.
This
offense.
is not the same guy that we saw last year.
But remember, when I said 7-3-7-7, like I'm not making light of what Sam said. I'm saying there were
almost 2 full quarters.
Oh, go ahead. I'll let you finish if you think the same thing I'm going to say.
Well, so this is why I think that Nebraska was closer to pulling away than they were to losing that game, because the defense went almost 2 full quarters, more than that. In game time, it was more than 2 full quarters without allowing a touchdown to Illinois. They allowed 3 points from mid first quarter, or no, because earlier than that, because Illinois scored on their first drive, right? So almost 3 full quarters without allowing a touchdown, because they didn't score their touchdown at the third until minute 30 left, right? So you're talking about almost 3 full quarters.
2.5.
2.5. Call it 2.5, okay? 2.5 quarters where Illinois scores 3 points, does not score a touchdown. Nebraska scores, gets it to 10-10. They have the touchdown interception coin flip play. If that goes their way,
it's 20.
It's 17-10.
Yeah.
Then they get the next touchdown, makes it 24-10, because the offense was cooking in the middle of the game. Like it maybe wasn't as super explosive in terms of big chunk plays, but they were getting whatever they want. And Dylan was rolling. Coach Rule even said that during the game. There was a section of that game where the offense was rolling and Dylan was playing super well. I think like you go 2.5 quarters without allowing a touchdown. I get that at the end of the game, the defense didn't play well. I get that. And I'm not absolving them of that. But if you look at what actually happened, and what was very close to actually happening, this was really close to being a 2-touchdown game going into the fourth quarter. And that's before we even get to the Lindenmeyer touchdown, non-touchdown, right? Like there is ample evidence there that if just a little bit goes differently, Nayer's a little bit stronger with the football. We actually know what a catch is in the end zone, whatever, that Nebraska's up 2 touchdowns going into the fourth.
I agree.
And that's not to absolve the other things that went wrong.
No, you don't have to say that either, though, because if people you don't have to say that, because I think nobody that complains and the sky is falling and fire this guy and this guy and this guy is saying, they're not couching that by saying, no, it's not to say things didn't go good or go well, I should say.
Yeah, but I'm trying to be better than they are.
But what I'm saying is at this particular juncture where fandom is just fandom, like you don't have to explain that, because I don't know if you can tell people like they're just gonna do what they do.
That's
right?
fine,
and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because you need the passion, because it's a lot better than apathy.
100%.
So why I like this game, and I'll go ahead. You want to finish first?
I was just gonna say, just bring less baggage to the table. That's all I'm asking.
Like
bring
the
old stuff.
Yeah.
Like if you got problems with, like I have problems with what happened on Friday. One of them is, and the thing I was the most wrong about was Nebraska's interior defensive line didn't get anything. I thought they were going to eat there. I thought Ty Robinson against the middle of that Illinois offensive line was going to wreak havoc. They didn't get a gosh darn thing.
Yeah,
that was a big concern for me.
If you can stomach it, go back and watch just O-line versus D-line.
Mm-hmm.
A lot was going on in there. You said it a couple times during the broadcast. And listen, I'm not one of those guys that's going to be like, well, they could have called this and should have called that. They let them play.
Mm-hmm.
They clearly let the interior line play there. And here's the other thing. When Nebraska gets around the quarterback, they got to get home.
Yeah, they got to do a little better.
Right?
They got to finish a little better.
Whether it's bending back, whether it's not letting a Q scramble underneath the pass rush. Mm-hmm. And some of it is you just have to take better angles.
Yeah, I think they were they underestimated Altmaier's mobility.
Like schematically, like when you get on like a grease board or whatever,
mm-hmm.
or your iPad, they make the angle of those arrows so they actually get to the circles. So when you're playing,
is that how it works? I don't.
Well, I mean, isn't every offensive play drawn up a touchdown? No, like how many of those offensive plays like stop?
Yeah, like, no, we're just trying to get 3 yards here.
Right. So
maybe just QB sneak. That's the only one.
I'm showing all these little. You see these like drawings and stuff. See those arrows? They
actually go.
They
the whole
continue.
Way.
And they're really perfect too. It's like, hey, you get to here, you get to here, you get to here, and
and then
see, everybody gets there. It's like, this is sweet. But then this thing happens where you have to get reads, right? Hi-hat,
mm-hmm.
down block. Is he pulling? Where you have to trigger, right? I loved what Coach Rule said when he said, we got to figure out what we want to do and how we want to do it, what we're calling with the guys that we have in there.
Yeah.
That means things may look really good with Butler and Tommy Hill.
So you got Tommy Hill in there.
And, a healthy safety or
mm-hmm.
what. It may look great. But sometimes it's like, okay, we don't have these guys in. I mean, Jamari, but like we don't have some of these guys in. Mm-hmm. We may have to do something like Stephon Thompson may have to play different than Bear and Bullock.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe you have to put him on the move. I'm just
giving examples.
People are just going to be like, oh, Stephon Thompson can't play. But I'm doing what I just got mad at you doing for couching the comment. You may have to put him on the move.
Yeah.
Or put him in the fit or say, hey, widen, like cheat code or whatever, just because of lack of experience or something like that, right? So
maybe he doesn't read things quite as quickly.
So it doesn't mean you have to scrap what you're doing. It just means like it's what I said in the very first 4 minutes of this show. This is one of those weeks where you felt like you left a lot out there on the table.
100%.
Get out of your feelings. Get on the iPad. Get out on the practice field. Own it. Just own it. I need to play. I need to do my part. My 1 of 11, right? And then you go have the practical application against Purdue. Because this week, it doesn't have anything to do with your physical ability.
Mm-hmm.
Although I do think they're a little banged up. This one is all about what is my competitive stamina? But it's emotional and mental. It's not physical. This is a competitive stamina game. Can I recrank this thing back up? Because I'm pissed.
Well, and if they're locked in, they're beating Purdue.
No,
that's full stop. Purdue's not very good. If they're locked in, they're beating Purdue. We'll wrap up hour number 2. Coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
I mean, you learn so much more from a loss than a win, right? We're all happy when we win, and you might not see the mistakes as well. But in a loss, when it comes down, and we even saw it last week, right, on defense, and guys were getting after it this past week. But if they keep showing up, or new problems show up, that's what, like I said, that's what's great about this team is we're able to come together, help fix each other.
Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. If you were bummed out about the loss on Friday, you definitely could have gotten out to Union Omaha, see them catch a win against Knoxville to stay at the top of the table.
That's a big one.
It was a big win for them with that 1-0 victory. You'll have another chance to go out and see them October 2nd. That's a week from Wednesday, back at Warner Park. That's a noon. That's a day game. Maybe take a little time off work. Get out there, have a little good time at the ballpark. It is Students and Educators Day presented by Family Fare and Supermercado. Make sure you get out to unionomaha.com to get your tickets. DB.
Yo.
There's a lot going on.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But you know what's funny? Don't panic.
No. That's what bothered me the most Friday. Was the panic.
Don't panic, man.
All of a sudden, everything that we thought was true for the last, not just 3 weeks, but the 3 months before that and whatever, people were freaking out all of a sudden. And you can't put this one on Satterfield. Thought he called a really good game. We know Tony White's good at his job, so whatever your issues are with the defense, you have to trust him to fix it. Right? We've been panicking Like, oh, we've only got Tony White for this last year and whatever. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, Tony White got out coached. It's like, is he a good coach or is he not?
He's a good coach.
Right? Like,
Yeah,
Illinois' got good coaches too. Like, Burt Bielema's, like, what did we talk about last week? Like, Burt Bielema's a better coach than you think.
So I don't know. How would you like I just look around the landscape of college football.
Yeah, a lot of people are losing games they shouldn't lose. A lot of people are giving up opportunities. I mean, you think USC thought they had any business losing to Michigan this week? Any business? They threw for 32 yards, DB.
Oh, I know. I watched. So I didn't come inside.
Yeah.
When I got home, for whatever the reason, we were at the high school until 1. Now, keep in mind, we get there at 7. Anyway, I love it. I like the kids. It's fine. So I know I've got to be at Channel 7 on Sunday.
Yeah.
Right. And we got to Zoom with our staff. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not coming inside. I'm going to sit outside. And I don't even remember what I ate for dinner. What did I eat? Anyway, I just watched that Michigan USC game.
Mm-hmm.
It was overcast. I put the umbrella up. There's not a soul out there. It was so crisp. It was pretty.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
It was nice.
SC,
It was nice.
Michigan.
Yeah. Felt like a Big Ten game.
I think I texted somebody something mean-spirited about it being on CBS.
Yeah.
Because I just couldn't get over it was Caleb.
Mm-hmm.
He was downstairs. And I'm like, man, there's just something about these voices with Big Ten football I have to get used to.
Yeah, it feels a little off.
But it was whatever. Then I'm watching this thing go back and forth. And then the other multi-view, I got Vandy and Missouri. And I'm like, we have and this is on the heels of all the criticism.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like a super full inbox. And I like it because I don't like it like, ooh, give me more. But I like it because I think people
care.
They do care.
And they're engaged.
So I'm cool. Like, so I'm just thinking, I'm like, what's the fine line between saying, look what everybody else is dealing with versus, man, we're our own benchmark.
Yeah.
Because while I want to say we're our own benchmark, we're still becoming.
I don't think we are yet.
Yeah. That's the thing, right? Like we're
getting there,
becoming our own benchmark.
Building towards it.
So instead of looking what Illinois did right, we got out coach. And then listen, it's a quality staff.
Bielema's good at what he does.
And some of the concepts, like I love, but don't say, oh man, we got pushed through. Like, go back and watch.
Some of it's execution.
Like, just don't make those sweeping generalizations. And it's not that you can't be wrong. It's that when you say that to yourself and you believe it, you tend to overreact.
Well, and a great example of this is the offensive line play, right? We think because they didn't run the ball as well as we wanted to.
That wasn't even where they struggled. If you were going to get at something, like talk about the pass pro.
Right. But I thought pass pro, he had plenty of time for the most part, outside of overtime, right? But for the most part, I thought Raiola.
Which situationally,
again,
and we said this on Tuesday, which is probably why I'm not panicking, because in my head, I said, listen, Illinois is very good with their situational pass rushing. They get you 5-on-5. They know exactly what they're doing.
Yep.
You have to stay. I think I was talking to Jess. I was like, one of the keys is to stay out of the obvious.
Yeah.
Because if you get
in the obvious,
if you let Illinois do the dictating with their pass rush,
you're in a little trouble.
Their edge guys are good.
Yeah.
Their edge guys are really good.
And so we looked at the offensive line and we said, okay, we didn't.
In overtime, it got predictable.
We don't like how it looked in overtime, and we didn't run for as much as we wanted to. And so we go, offensive line must have played bad. Okay, let's go look at the offensive line play, because you're missing 2 starters. Mazuka's not playing, and then Corcoran gets hurt. And it sounds like he's going to be out for a while.
Yuck.
And so, but outside of 1 or 2 plays, I thought Gunnar Gatula played really well.
I was pleasantly pleased with,
for a 3rd string left tackle.
Yeah,
really did not get exposed much.
And
one of them was in overtime. Which
the only guy that thought he was any good was Andrew Rogers. So let's not act like
everybody loved him.
We thought he was coming out being Orlando
This wasn't
base.
Grant Bricks coming in, right? Where everybody's like, this is the guy, right? A lot of people had some questions about Gunnar Gatula. Everybody thought Sam Sledge was the better in-state lineman in that class, right? And so we're looking there, and Gunnar Gatula, outside of a couple plays, now one of them was in overtime, so it was a big one. But outside of a couple plays, where he just was late off the line. But outside of a couple plays, Gunnar Gatula played pretty well. And here's what I'm going to say about the run, about the running game, right? You talked about it being a vision game. What did I text you? You don't have to say exactly, but what did I text you during the game?
That you thought somebody had problems with vision.
Yeah, I thought Dante Dowdell wasn't seeing things well. I love how hard he runs. Didn't think he was seeing things really well because Dante Dowdell is a hit the hole runner. Sometimes you have to have a find the crease runner. Okay, maybe that's oversimplifying, but that's how I look at it as more of a fan than a coach, right? Sometimes you have to, and Ramir Johnson, I think, is a find the crease guy. But correct me if I'm wrong here, I don't think they want to overuse Ramir Johnson.
Yeah,
I think they want to try and keep him healthy. I think they're afraid of overusing him. Where does that put you? Probably need to see a few more Emmett Johnson carries.
If Lafferty wouldn't have got, he had the little jet sweep, and I think he ended up going like 4 for 30 maybe? Something like that.
Yeah, I'd have to look.
Which weren't downhill runs. He's the speedy scat guy.
Yeah,
right?
they were kind of gimmicky, not gimmick, but gadget runs.
You had the other two backs fairly well bottled up until
pretty bottled
Fagan broke in overtime.
Yeah.
So I didn't get the whole pushed around thing. Like, that was driving me crazy.
The biggest area was the pass rush on defense.
Yeah.
That's where it felt like Nebraska got pushed around.
But even then, it was still 4 against 5.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to talk about, okay, and they're +1 rushes or something like that, and where it was like 1-on-1, okay. But don't make that about, like, we just use, like, we don't even know what we're saying. It's just like.
Lowry went 4 for 30.
Okay. So it was 4 for 30.
Yeah.
Like, that changes the YPCs tremendously.
Yeah, so that takes him down to that takes him down well under 4 carry.
So it's like
they were only at 4.3 for the game. That's not, I know you want it below that, but that's not a crazy number.
No, and again, we keep saying pushed around, but let's say I get off of that. I still don't arrive at how we kind of absolve the offense of still needing to be better and special teams, because there's really only, we said this forever, there's just 5 or 6 plays you have to make as an offense, and sometimes it's even in particular as a quarterback, that you have to make that are the difference in close games.
When you're not so much more talented than people,
and
that you
Illinois made them,
and Nebraska did.
And Nebraska didn't.
That's it. It doesn't have to be a huge sweeping indictment.
What was Illinois on 4th down? 2 for 3?
Yes.
And I think on 1 or 2 they scored.
Yeah, on 1 they definitely did.
So
on 4th and goal, they definitely scored on a 4th and goal.
The 4th and it was like 4th and goal from the 5.
Yeah, and that was
the one where 94 scored.
Yep.
Like, that's one of those 5 or 6 plays.
Yeah, that's one of those you have to get a stop on. Just have to.
So
that's a non-negotiable. Have to get a stop there.
Let's go to Jay.
Jay wants to talk about how it's everybody's fault. What's up, Jay?
Jay, are you an equal opportunist blamer or what? What's up, Jay?
I am. I didn't hear what Ravi said when I first got on. He usually says something to keep me. So
no, he said Jay, who I think probably feels like it's both sides' fault.
I do. So here's my thought, man, real quick. You guys are great. Have an amazing day after I get off the phone.
Appreciate it.
I feel like there's 27 points out there, and I'll be really quick. This is how it happened. Ramir Johnson in the first quarter. If you run your pattern inbounds and do not step out of bounds, there's 6, right? Or 7. Another one, obviously, the second time in 2 weeks that one of our superstar receivers are not, dogs in the air. They're not getting the ball from the cornerback. And 2, Dylan is probably underthrowing them slightly. Not probably. He's underthrowing them, trying to be perfect. Whereas I think he needs to reward his receivers by leading them upfield, like reward them for getting beyond the corners. There's another 7 points for that one. Then there's obviously the missed field goal. There's 3. There's obviously the missed ball to 44. And then we have another 3, right?
Yeah.
I think that gets us 27. I might be missing one, right? So I think there's just some stuff left on the field offensively. I'm not mad at Satterfield at the game that he called. I think that he did well. I just think that, those little small mistakes are heightened when the defense seems like they can't get a stop. Like, I was waiting in the second half. Like, it wasn't a feeling like we're going to lose. I was just saying we just need one stop. We get a stop, we come down there and score.
They spent 2.5 quarters getting stops. They just couldn't get on when they needed it.
Appreciate the call, Jay. We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Now throw down sideline, one-on-one. Harrison's got it. Goodbye. 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown. Ole Miss.
Yep. Play action froze everyone, David. It was 101 on the outside with Trey Harris. It was a little stop and go, and he just simply ran by the defender.
Offenbarger hands it away.
Whoa.
He's got the 20, then the 30, then the 40. Look out, here we go. Jordan Lyle, he's got the 30, he's at the 20. Jordan Lyle to the 10, to the 5, and he takes it all the way home. 91 spectacular yards for Jordan Lyle.
Welcome back. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. We are joined now by Ben Kercheval to talk some national college football. He is an editor for CBS Sports. Ben, how are you this morning?
I'm good, guys. Thank you.
I don't want to be like one of those guys that's all into recency bias, but it appears, Ben, that for all the slack these two teams that I'll talk about first took about who they really are and getting preseason hype, and they always let us down. Between Miami and USC, it appears Miami is holding up their end of the deal. They may actually be pretty good.
Miami is like blowing the doors off of teams. They are just, there are like two teams right now that I can think of off the top of my head. Like two teams that just every week are just roadhouse kicking people into the turf. Miami is one of them, and Indiana is the other. Indiana hasn't played anybody, but I don't know if you ever like turn on a score for them. Every time I look at Indiana, they are just obliterating like some poor team. And every time I tune into Miami, USF had it maybe for a little bit, but like every time I tune into Miami, they are just absolutely crushing somebody.
Ben, what are the chances? I mean, looking at Miami's schedule, they're not going to have a lot of tests on the way in the regular season. I mean, at Louisville in a few weeks is probably...
Louisville will be tough.
That's about it, though, right?
I don't have Miami's schedule.
So they got
I don't know exactly who they play.
Vatek at Cal, at Louisville, Florida State.
At Cal could be tricky.
Okay.
Cal's defense has been really good.
Yeah, they were.
They have a good running game. Like they did not beat Florida State. I think the Seminoles just had to get off the mat. But like they had 2 3,000-mile trips like in 3 weeks, and they beat Auburn. I mean, Auburn's probably terrible on offense, but like Cal's not bad. I mean, there are a couple of spots, but I can't think of a situation in which Miami will not be favored.
Who would you learn more about, Ben? Did you learn more about Michigan and USC relative to that game, or Tennessee playing at Oklahoma? Who do you feel better about capping between those 4 teams going into this weekend?
Probably, I think I came out of it feeling best about Michigan. But it's not just that they won. It's that it's okay. This is what the Alex Orji offense looks like.
Okay.
This is what we're going to do. And if we can, so in the Texas game, Texas could block Michigan. So their defense couldn't get to him. And then Quinn Ewers is obviously his ball placement is incredible. He's an NFL player. And Texas has so many weapons that if you can't get to the quarterback, then you're going to start trading field goals for touchdowns, and it's going to get sideways. And it did. USC was the script for Michigan. Will Johnson has a pick 6, his second of the year. I mean, this guy is making plays that win you football games.
And I don't even know if he's fully healthy. He's just out here balling.
Yeah, I mean, he's incredible. He's wild. And then you have Donovan. You have 2 running backs who end up having big days, and you're just leaning on this. It's not even the thought of a forward pass. But if you can just out-muscle teams, which Michigan, though maybe depleted relative to last year's unit, still has plenty of guys, you can be like supersize me Iowa and win maybe not 12 games, but you can probably win 9 or 10 with that. And that is, for being so limited offensively, that's an extremely high floor. But I thought exiting the week, USC bounced back off the mat coming out of halftime. They have some girth that they probably still need to add. They got pushed around, but I thought, played overall pretty well. And I think they're still maybe not a championship contender, but I think a factor in the Big Ten. And then, Tennessee was good. It just, boy, Oklahoma's got a situation on its hands, does it not?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. And that schedule doesn't get any easier for them to have to make a couple of decisions on the fly.
Yeah. I mean, I think that quarterback battle is legit. I mean, I think they have a real situation on their hands. And a big part of it is that, their offensive line has not been very good. Tennessee's defense is excellent. particularly up front. And I figured that was probably going to be a problem in that game, and it was. And it just Jackson Arnold is just not the guy who's going to consistently get you out of that. I mean, there are just streaks of time where Oklahoma's offense disappears, and I think you have to go with the guy who gives you a spark. But that's me Monday morning quarterbacking, literally.
Okay, so I'm looking at Tennessee though, and I get it. They had been explosive on offense, but they ran the ball for less than than 3 yards a carry.
Yeah,
and
Oklahoma did a great job.
And they threw for less than 200. Did we validate Oklahoma defensively, or is Tennessee? Yeah. They still okay.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma's defense is excellent. Brent Venables has done a really nice job repairing that from when you go back to like the Lincoln Riley, Alex Grinch days. I mean, they are very talented and very good defensively. Their offense has to figure it out. So that Tennessee was not as productive on the road. And look, Nico is excellent, but it's also like his first true road start. And that game probably went pretty well, all things considered, for Tennessee. They can also lean on their defense a little bit. And Oklahoma has some things to figure out with its quarterback.
Ben, when you're looking at some of the teams at the very top here, whether it's Tennessee, Texas, Miami, who we talked about, or I'm going to throw Ole Miss in there as well.
You're just going to leave out Georgia.
That's fine. We don't need to talk about Georgia. Out of those four teams, who have you been the most impressed by? Because they're all just kind of like you. I think you used the term roadhouse kicking people, which I liked. Out of those four, who do you like the best so far?
I would say Texas. One, they've showed it probably the most. I mean, the win over Michigan is probably maybe the best overall. Although that Clemson win still looks really good for Georgia, but they have I think the best win. And my God, guys, you have two quarterbacks that could win you a national championship on that team. I mean, I know Arch hasn't played against a high school squad yet, but you're just like watching the kid go off, and you're like, I know Quinn Ewers is the guy, and he's also like a first-round arm talent, and he can win you a national championship there. But then, like, waiting in the wings is just this other guy who can do the exact same thing. I got to hand it to Sark. I was not a big believer on his hire. I know we joke about it a ton. Texas is back. Texas is like to the standard that they need to be at to win a national championship. They have the caliber of players, and between last year and this year, they've done it on some of the biggest stages. I mean, Sarkisian has done an excellent job with that program.
Ben, I got to ask you about a game that I think only I cared about going into the weekend, that BYU Kansas State game. Is BYU legit? Like, I've been a big Kalani Sitake fan for like a really long time.
AP says so at 4-0.
Like I think people really liked Kansas State, and they just kind of went out and worked them. Like, how do you feel about BYU at this point?
BYU is probably, I will just play it safe on this one. They're probably an upper half Big 12 team, which in my eyes, that league is like probably 3, maybe 4 teams deep on teams that can really make like a run to the championship. And then 5 through probably 15 are just put them in any order. And BYU is probably on the upper end of that. Mm-hmm. There are some principles in college football, and Provo at night, like, is sort of one of them. Mm. And so I think Kansas State they had a bad game. I mean, Kansas State is good, but they are imperfect as well. I mean, they have warts. And BYU exploited them and got some help. And I mean, they were, they took advantage of it. And that's what 4-0 teams do.
All right. So Ben, you've got teams like, I don't know, you got K-State, you got A&M, you got Boise. Clemson's got a loss. Notre Dame's got a loss. Cal's got a loss. LSU. I actually think Iowa belongs in the discussion because I think they're pretty good. Of those one-loss teams, I asked last week, who could get like a rising from the dead, kind of like a Lazarus Project deal. of those one-loss teams, is there a team out there that you think could come from the rear?
You listed off so many one-loss teams, I've already forgotten what they are.
Yeah, so like I think some good candidates, some good candidates.
I remember is Iowa.
I'll give you some good candidates, right? Like I think Clemson may actually get their act together.
Right.
Notre
Okay.
Dame's.
No. Let me hear it. Let me just go ahead and let's just nip this in the bud. I'll go ahead and just give you Clemson since you mentioned them because I do have some thoughts on them.
Okay.
So, is the offense fixed? I don't. But we'll see.
They sure are scoring a lot.
Yeah, well, I tell you what. So that NC State game was wild because C.J. Bailey was getting his first start because Grayson McCall was hurt.
Yeah.
And he had some, early turnovers, but like before he could even blink, it was 28-0, like in the first quarter. That is just, and then you watch him throughout the rest of the game and he actually didn't play poorly. But Clemson, just that was them. Because you know how like NC State is, like we kind of hey, this might be their year, and like sometimes they've given Clemson props in the past. That is Clemson going into it and just taking it over from the start, and just putting their foot down and not even let NC State get up off the ground. I mean, that defensive performance from the Wolfpack to start was pathetic. And it through the first half. I mean, Clemson scored 6 touchdowns on its first 7 possessions. I mean, it's just they just right now they look like they're unstoppable. But we'll have to see it against. I don't know how much better competition there's going to be. I mean, NC State's defense might be okay, but I mean they've been shredded twice now. So Clemson, I don't know. Sometimes it takes like 15 months. Or whatever, 16 months to just like the offense, like it just takes a minute for it to just snap into place. I don't know, but it's fun to watch because now you're like, hey, it's probably not good enough for Georgia, but it's good enough for the it's good probably good enough for Miami.
We're talking with Ben Kercheval of CBS Sports. Ben, what do you make of Missouri? They've had a couple close games in a row, although the Boston College one wasn't maybe as close as the final score indicated, but very easily could have lost that Vandy game. What are you doing with the Tigers?
I don't know. I mean, I think the schedule, whatever kinks that they need to work out, I still think they have time to do it. So I'm not going to say that like they're not good yet. I think they have time to get better before it gets really tough. But if they keep playing like they've been playing, I'm not even close to a top 10 team. They just look disjointed. And Vanderbilt, to its credit, I put it on my tombstone, right? Vanderbilt to its credit. But like Clark Lee is doing some good things there. They have a good quarterback. They've gotten more athletic. Like Vanderbilt is no longer just the pushover in the SEC. It's probably Mississippi State at the moment. Mississippi State is terrible. But like Vanderbilt's not awful. And when you don't play well and they haven't played well, that's what happens. I mean, they got down 14-0 to Boston College. Now they were able to right the ship, but like Boston College is good enough to do that on you. So they got some things to figure out for sure.
Ben, when you're kind of watching college football, and there's going to be some of these teams like we mentioned that are kind of close together, but I also think coaches just want to win and move on, especially with 12 teams. So maybe being impressive isn't like at the frontal part of the old lobe. Are you having to watch these games differently based on the fact that coaches are just trying to win and move on? Or are there other things that you'll be kind of trying to watch for as you parse through these teams that are kind of clustered together?
Well, first of all, if you ever watch a Lane Kiffin team, that man's always trying to cover.
Yeah, he stays on the gas, doesn't he? They may be pretty good too.
I don't know what coaches you're watching, but you're not watching the full spectrum of them. There's some coaches. James Doan I had to like sweat that bet, y'all. I'm sitting there like Clemson's. I'm like, they got this in the bag. And then NC State just keeps going. I'm like, yo, man, Doan's like trying to kick down the back door. What's going on here? They're not just trying to win. They're trying to make some boosters very happy along the way. Like, hey, man, I took you guys. Like, okay, let's get this on. okay, here's the other just reality for probably 90% of the teams in college football. It literally is just week to week, y'all. Like, they are just trying to get a W. And I think it's tough out there in those streets. Again, like 90% of college football teams, like, you're just trying to get a W, man. You're just trying to get a win. You're just trying to get things to, like, not go terribly that day. That is most of college football. So when you say the coaches just want to win, they're just trying to get the next week.
So I think the marquee matchup outside of Georgia and Bama, and apparently now it's Illinois and Penn State too. But I tell you, a quiet one of a one-loss team that may continue to make some noise. How about Louisville and Notre Dame? I think the odds makers made Notre Dame they're like a 4-point favorite. I still don't know what to make of Notre Dame outside. I know they're good defensively, but you seem to like Louisville quite a bit.
Actually, I haven't watched Louisville as much as I probably should have for an undefeated team. I've caught a little bit of it. A little bit of them. I would say with Notre Dame, they're talented but flawed. I mean, like you mentioned, their defense is good, but Riley Leonard is just not much of a passer. It's just, again, can you just run the ball down their throat? If they can do that against Louisville, then I think they probably can win that one. But I don't know. I think I get the impression Louisville is a top-end ACC team. I think this will be tough, especially in that environment.
Ben mentioned Penn State just a second ago with their matchup against Illinois this week. You buying or selling the Nittany Lions?
This is like a 17.5-point game. I'm probably buying on Penn State. That outside of Bowling Green, which, by the way, Bowling Green gave Texas A&M hell this past weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Bowling Green might not actually be terrible. Bowling Green might be okay. So either that or they're just they're wasting it all on these Power 5 teams. But Penn State has shown in every other instance that it is putting its foot down on teams. Against in West Virginia is not that good, but they went into Morgantown to start and they put their foot down. They've taken care of the cupcakes on their schedule. There is no doubt about who they are. Illinois, I think, is really interesting because that win over Nebraska is very good, and they have a decent offense. Altmaier's a good quarterback that they picked up, and they have some weapons around it and stuff. But I think that Kansas game is probably not as great as it looks maybe on paper.
Especially if you don't like West Virginia based on this past weekend, right?
Oh, West Virginia. Well, West Virginia has Garrett Green. He's a playmaker for them, but they're very limited elsewhere.
And Kansas, they struggled to that one.
Those Kansas and West Virginia are two, again, very flawed teams, and West Virginia came out on a coin flip. So Penn State, but has taken care of business against those types of teams. I think at home, that's going to be a tough environment for Illinois. I probably trust Penn State more to assert the type of top-tier program that it views itself as. I think, Illinois can make some plays, but I think that the level is, I think Penn State is a tier above, and I think they'll show it.
I had to take a double take at 17.5. I thought it was closer.
But Illinois is having
I thought it was closer to 7.5, right? I'm like, 17.5, really?
Yeah. Well, what's funny is Illinois' preseason win total was 5.5. They're not out of September, and they have the possibility of coming close to hitting it.
Mm-hmm.
So they are close to hitting it. So just if this team wins 7, 8, they're blowing past their preseason win total. I think they're having a good year and can do that. I think Penn State is a step up talent-wise, and I think they'll show it.
I think he's hard to cap, in my opinion, but statistically, he's pretty efficient. They had the week off. They go to UCLA. What are your thoughts? If I said, hey, Ben, what do you think about Dylan Gabriel? What comes to mind?
He's a really good college quarterback. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
if he was Bud Elliott on the Cover 3 podcast always says this a bunch. If he was the pro, he'd be in the pros. He's small. He's small. He's on his third school, and he's been prolific, right? I mean, he's put up very good numbers.
I mean, to start the season, he was the second. He was either the Heisman fave or back, depending on how you looked at it, right?
But then what happened is Oregon had so many injuries along its offensive line, and they couldn't block anybody for the first 2 weeks. They got right against Oregon State. We'll see if that continues. But I think Gabriel is a very productive player, and that's a compliment. I mean, he's limited. So when he's not getting blocking, he's not making plays. But when things are going well around him and it looks like they've snapped into place, he will lead what is probably still an excellent Oregon team.
Ben, just a couple minutes left here with you. We've covered a lot of ground here with a lot of teams. Is there a team that you are low-key kind of high on that we haven't gotten to yet?
Oh, man. Because Indiana would be my answer to that.
We've been talking about Cignetti since we were at Big Ten Media Days. He kind of stole the show, but
he really low-key did, because there was my favorite quote from him was something, and I'm gonna get it wrong.
I win. Google me.
Yeah. No, it's when he goes, we go into the Rose Bowl or some old ass to like beat their ass or something. Some old stadium and beat their ass. We're gonna do it every week. And they went into the Rose Bowl and they beat their ass. And I'm just like, and you know, their quarterback is pretty good. I mean, like and every time I look, like they've schemed guys open, like they're getting guys in space, and they like offensively they look really fun. And he had a lot of success with James Madison. James Madison put 70 on North Carolina, and he has Indiana. Again, they haven't played anybody. They'll probably come back to reality at some point. But like, boy, they are going in there really believing they're going to beat the absolute daylight out of that team, and they do it. And I'm just and I'm like, okay, Indiana, like they are just looking for a fight all the time. And I just, you know, while this thing is riding high, fellas, I am just like, hell yeah, I'm enjoying every second of what Indiana has to offer.
What's your gut tell you real quick about Georgia, Bama? Who do you like?
Probably Georgia. I think, you know what? This is my deep state, like tinfoil hat, like, you know, conspiracy. Georgia played well so that Kirby Smart could be like, you guys started believing in yourself. Start listening to rat poison ahead of the Alabama game. Like, oh, guys, the Alabama game's get right. You know, he's like screaming at him after Kentucky. Like, they won that game, but that was like the best thing that could have happened to them, because he's like, you guys got pushed off the ball by freaking Kentucky. Like, what the hell are you guys doing? And so their defense is just so good. And Jalen Milroe is, I know, look, Ryan Williams is exceptional. Like, but I think when you're talking about a freshman in these situations, are you able to rely on them? Milroe is, you know, I don't know ultimately if I will, you know, I don't know if I think of him as like a passer first, but I think it will be close. These two teams are very evenly matched. Georgia's probably a little better. I'll go with them, but I mean, this is one of the games of the year. It's going to be excellent.
That's Ben Kercheval from CBS Sports. Ben, we appreciate the time, and hopefully we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks, Ben.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. Almost forgot the name of the show there for a second. We're also on KFOR in Lincoln.
Cold in here.
It is a little cold in here. I wonder how that happened. Is somebody messing with the thermometer or something? I don't know.
It would be a thermostat.
The thermometer. It's like a meat thermometer.
I gotta get rid of these. What do the kids use these days? Cucumbers or zucchinis? What do you put on your eyes to get rid of the sleep bags? Your boy's going on about 10 hours here in the last 3 days.
I don't do nothing.
I feel like I look sleepy.
What I do know is the time for Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. Mondays this month, including today. Make sure you get out to the Sportsbook in Lincoln for the Monday night tailgate drawings. At 8 p.m. and 9 p.m., they'll draw for Yeti coolers, free slot play, and tickets to Kansas City Chiefs game on October 7th. You must be present to win. For details, get to warhorsecasino.com. DB.com. That's an old commercial. That's not. We don't do those.
What do you
anymore.
want?
I don't know.
What?
I don't know. We're just out here doing it. We're just out here going to
you
these old
shocked
stadiums
at these old, I'll beat their ass in this old ass stadium. Is that what you're gonna do, Kurt?
Apparently that's what they're doing. Well, they only went to one old stadium so far. I don't know how old. I think
he was definitely a trip.
He was on one for sure. You asked.
I wish you'd have been a little more high functioning, so you could remember what he was saying.
You and me both. You and me both, brother.
Wowzer.
You asked Ben this question. I wanted to ask you this question.
Don't ask me.
Asking us question. Harass and arrest us. Never mind. That's a different thing.
I told you.
No. Never.
Hey. Do you know your ethnicity?
I'm Indian.
I need you to stop talking like that.
Half Indian.
Stop it. You're just wrong for that.
What'd I do?
Wrong.
What'd I do?
Nothing.
All right.
Hi, Shane.
I got questions for you.
Are these hard questions? Like, is Nebraska getting pushed around? Although I do like our YouTube chat. He thought more that Nebraska's getting pushed around on offense.
I do have a question.
What?
About Illinois.
Okay.
Can it be true that Nebraska should have played better, could have played better, definitely had some things they left out there, and that Illinois is better than we thought?
Yeah.
Can both those things be true?
100%.
Because I think Illinois is better than we thought.
Yeah. Now, what's going to happen is they're going to go to Happy Valley and get boat raced, and
then the sky's falling again.
Yeah. I'm being sarcastic.
Yeah.
But I don't know why it's 17.5.
No, that's a big number.
Yeah, it is, especially how
Illinois is better than
how
Vegas
they
too.
play them.
Yeah. It's going to be hard to beat Illinois by 17.5.
Well, unless they turn the ball over. I mean, Altmaier is going to have to suddenly be. I get it. Did you just watch them run all over Nebraska? I don't love Illinois' run game.
No, not their traditional run game. Their QB run game's better.
So that may be a problem.
And Altmaier's pretty good.
I mean, we did have a tight end go bananas on us that had 2 catches coming into that one. He clearly was not on the scouting report.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
But that happens. We're still mad about
scheme him up.
We're still mad about Lindemar.
Hey, why you draw that up for Lindemar? How come that can't be for Donnie?
If I heard that again, let's
just run that to Banks. They wouldn't cover Banks.
I had a headache for 2 days and I was pretty much sober, so that wasn't it.
That thing wet.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's a reason they ran that. I thought it was well drawn up.
I would like to just because I'm not gonna kid you. I do like to know how people think.
I do too.
And I know you think I'm weird and I'm a glutton for punishment.
Sometimes you are.
I got super mad at Dennis. Like I let Dennis have it.
Denny?
Yes.
Yeah, what'd he do? Acting crazy? Talking foolish?
Not really.
What'd you get mad at him for?
I just was not in the mood. It was too soon.
Yeah.
For what was said to be said, and it was just
Satterfield.
No.
Oh, okay. Because usually that would be the thing that would be too soon, especially after that game. I don't think you can look at that game and be like, "Oh, Satterfield."
Unless you're Lincoln Lance.
Yeah, unless you've got like an axe to grind.
But so here's the thing about Lincoln Lance.
Yeah.
Though. I think Lincoln Lance is still open to be convinced. So I'm serious. Like I think that's one of those where he wouldn't mind being wrong.
I think Lincoln Lance wants you to think he's open.
Well, that's how Severe is.
Severe's book closed on Satterfield.
Yeah.
So like he's out. But this is where my skepticism and your open-mindedness about people are different.
I am open-minded with people.
You are much more so than I am. I hear people talk a certain way, and it's like, okay, you're telling me one thing, and then everything else you say after that contradicts the first thing you said. So Lincoln Lance says, hey, I'm open about being Satterfield, and then he only ever gives you evidence.
No, so here's the thing.
Okay.
This is what I think.
Okay.
I think for a guy, and he's not, there's several, it doesn't matter. Like, so now we're on this, is Tony White really that good thing?
Mm-hmm.
So I think what happens with people like that is, yeah, they are open to not being right, but what they ask you gives examples of why they believe what they believe.
Okay.
So I think with Lance, it's not.
But they never bring up the other side of the argument. Like if you're actually open to something, you'll say, oh, hey, this happened.
Well, I'm not so sure.
Like he might want to be wrong, but he's not open to being wrong.
So let's say we're doing the points per play thing.
Sure.
I'm not so sure he's looking at it like, okay, if you catch the pick, if you win the 50-50 ball and you complete the pass
to Lindemeyer,
your points per possession increased dramatically.
Mhm.
Because most people, it's not like he would be the only one to not think like that.
Right.
If you're just looking at the analytics, 98% of the people would look at it the way he's looking at it. You don't think of the counterpoint.
I need people to just.
I always do, because it's not like I don't want to make it seem like I was born this way.
Mhm.
Some of it is innate,
learned behavior,
but most of it is because I coach.
Yeah.
And I'm not I have to look at it that way.
Right, because you don't want to make snap decisions about things that aren't necessarily true.
Yeah, so it's how I deal with people. It's how I do conflict resolution. It's how I do everything, right? It's just
You have more faith in the benefit of the doubt than I do.
well, I just think with enough, maybe
That's what I think it is. And you're not. I'm not saying it's wrong. Or
maybe
right. I'm not saying it's wrong or right.
But it's not like I'm like pro humanitarian, like go good guy. Because
no, but you give people a lot of leash.
I am pro people.
You give people a lot longer leash than I do.
I'm pro people
because
I think people generally want to. I don't know. I need fans, so I want to encourage fans. I'm not gonna.
I like fans. I am a fan, right?
I'm gonna say I need fans. I like fans. I think it's very, very important.
I am a fan, but I also, when I see a fan that isn't gonna think a way that makes any sense to me,
or the way that you want them to.
Not even that. Like, if you can lay out a logical argument that I disagree with, I'm gonna disagree with you, but I'm like, yeah, I can see how you got there.
Yeah.
But if you're just not even thinking about things in a way, or if you're just like, hey, I'm not trying to be logical, I'm going to be emotional, cool, no problem. Like if you're just like, hey, I don't care what the real reason is, I wanted to beat Colorado by 50. I got you. 100%.
Speaking of which, Mr. Logical, he is team pragmatic. The mayor says, hey, Nico gets 4 games to play and still redshirt, right? Can we talk about special teams? That's exactly how he talks in real life too.
Yeah.
That is vintage.
Yeah. If you want to talk about like I think there's real issues to address on special teams, sure. If you want to talk about technical versus tactical, we can have that conversation. Or if you just want to be emotional and say, hey, I just need us to make a GD kick at some point. Cool. Like I'm cool with all of that, right? But when you start talking about things, it's usually, and I think I mentioned this last week, it's usually when people say emotional things and then try and pretend they're logical about it, that's where you lose me.
Well,
that's where you lose me. You can be emotional, and I'm cool. You can be logical and disagree with me, and I'm cool. If you're going to be emotional and then try and convince me you're being logical with your emotions, I'm out.
But isn't that just what people do?
You got to be better, though. You're telling me all the time we got to expect better out of people. I'm expecting better out of people. You want to have a discourse? Either tell like, hey, we're having an emotional conversation. Cool. I can be mad. Just you see me. I'm King Petty. I'll get mad with anybody. Right? I'll stay on it. I don't have a problem with that.
King Petty.
Oh, I know that's Richard.
Ravi here for being Dick Petty.
I forgot. That's Richard. That's my bad.
What the world?
Huh?
3-year 7-10 champ. Nice.
You want to talk special teams?
At least.
So he does bring up a good point that I talked about earlier.
What's that?
Roster management and special teams is clearly going to be a thing. It has to be.
Kind of tying this all together. You know what I'm betting on?
What?
I think Illinois is going to cover against Penn State.
Really?
17.5 is too big. Ooh, I think Illinois is pretty good. That's my takeaway.
17.5.
That's too much. We'll be back to wrap up the show.
Funny social media people.
We do. I like our fans. We'll talk some NFL coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Fields back to pass, throws over the middle of the field. It's Calvin Austin. He has a step. Austin heading straight up the middle of the field, inside the 10 to the 5. Touchdown, Calvin Austin. 55 yards from Fields to Austin.
Mahomes in the pocket, throws it left. Caught Juju Smith-Schuster, angling left for it, diving, touchdown, Kansas City. Welcome back to the Chiefs Kingdom in the end zone. Juju Smith-Schuster.
Welcome back. Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube.
It's not working.
That's DB. He's drawn on his phone.
It's not working.
I'm Ravi Lulla.
Do you know what I wish I had?
I'm not using a coloring book right now. What's up?
Like the old thing where I could draw.
Stylus?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the little pen thing,
Yeah,
right?
stylus.
That's
you gotta
what I
get,
wish I had.
You got to get a different Android for that. Some of them have them. Some of the Androids have like a little pen.
That's what I need. Can you guys see what I'm doing? Like I'm literally trying to.
He's
draw,
coloring.
but I'm like I can't. So I go to draw a dot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, there's one, but it's too big. It looks like it's not how I want. It's not how I want to do it. I want to show everybody exactly what happened on the goal line, and I also want to show everybody what happened on the overtime run. That's what I want to do.
Oh, on the Illinois overtime run?
Yes.
Where he breaks to the outside?
Yes.
Got maybe a couple bad angles on that one?
Yes.
Not keep him contained the way we want to?
Yes.
Yeah. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Is that a bad defensive play call, though, or is that execution?
It's a fair question. I don't
we needed to do something.
So I go back to what Coach Rule said, how we need to figure out what we're calling with who we have in the game.
Sure. So the play call might have been okay, but not a great fit for who was in there.
Correct.
So it's going to be hard for them to execute.
Although I have seen a couple of the guys that didn't get there before.
Yeah.
And I also think there was something to the formation, right? Back on the field, the back to the left of the quarterback versus back being away versus where the 3-by was.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think they got Nebraska to line up how they wanted to.
So you're telling me sometimes play call and results are not directly
are
correlated.
Are you being
No, I'm just asking a question. Like sometimes a play call does not directly
offensive?
Well, either side.
Okay.
Either side of the ball.
Okay.
Does not directly correlate to the result of the play. Is that fair?
Yes.
Is that a thing that happens sometimes?
Yes.
So like if you drop a super nice play, let's say to like a third string tight end, just as an example.
Oh,
and
boy.
he's wide open in the end zone.
Sure.
And then a ball is thrown in a place where he cannot catch it.
Sure.
Right? Was that a bad play call then? Because it didn't turn into a touchdown? Is that?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. So that may not show up in the stats, is what you're telling me. That was a good play call.
So let's just take our emotions out of it.
So sometimes good play calls don't show up in stats.
Friday morning, I came back to you and I said, as a guy that helps put together defenses,
yeah, I
was upset that we gave up the 63-yard touchdown to Bellevue West, right? But the first thing I said was, that was a heck of a play call.
Yeah.
He caught us in such and such, and he did this. Now, the throw still had to be on the money.
Got to execute.
And the kid had to win on the route. But it was a great
good play call.
It
was the 4th and 2, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he went over the top on us.
Yeah.
Now, easily you could have, if that play doesn't work.
He drops it. Say he drops the ball.
If that play doesn't work.
Like, hey, just run the ball on 4th and 2. What are you doing?
I'm sure the fans feel some type of
Why
way.
aren't you running the ball on 4th and 2? You can't line up and run the ball on 4th and 2?
But he made a play and a great throw.
It's 3rd and 3. We got 2 downs to get 3 yards. You can't just run it?
Listen, that's exactly what it was, too.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was. They got 1 yard gain running it, and it set up 4th and 2.
So you're telling me,
we got on the headset and we're like, hey man, sometimes
good on you.
You just tip your cap.
Yeah. And sometimes you get the right play call and they don't execute.
You really want him to complete, because do you feel like if he completes that pass that
ball game,
we're not having a lot of anxiety?
Ball game. We're not talking about it. Now I do disagree with Sam. Sam said earlier that if he completes that,
you're not going to be the only one.
Sam said earlier that if he completes that pass, then Nebraska still gets to learn everything they need to learn and they get a win. I'm not sure that's true. I think there is a fundamental human element that makes it harder, even if you know you didn't play well or didn't play to your best, that makes it harder to learn until you fail.
Did you get the philosophy of if you're going to take a shot play, then
in overtime?
No. With the play action, the Lindenmeyer, then you're not kicking the field goal?
No.
Did you understand what people were saying with that?
No, not at all.
I might be missing something, and I'm being dead serious because I was pretty peeved.
Because what happened? Okay, because let's go back even further, right?
Okay, no, wait. Joel might be talking about this.
Okay,
I just saw this. Joel says, I would rather see them run the ball on 3rd down when they threw to Lindenmeyer, knowing you're going. Okay, so this is what we're saying. I'm reading this slow. I'm so special. I would rather see them run the ball on 3rd down when they threw to Lindenmeyer, knowing you're going to go for it on 4th because you don't trust your kicking. That's a sneaky coaching decision I'd like to revisit. Know where your capabilities are at right now.
I don't think it ever crossed their mind that they weren't going to kick.
I disagree. Yeah.
I don't think it ever crossed their mind they weren't going to kick.
I kind of disagree with that. But as I read it, I'm guessing this is what everybody, that's funny he sent this. I'm guessing that's what the critics were saying.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's nuts.
Now let me,
before
I say that, I'm processing.
Okay, you process. I'm going to yell.
Okay.
On 4th and 3,
would rather see them.
Let's say they get a yard on 3rd and 3. Now it's 4th and 2. If it's 4th and 2 and they go for it and they don't get it, what's the conversation we're having? Why didn't they take the points? Why didn't they kick the field goal? That's the exact same thing we're going to have that conversation with if they go for it on 4th down. The exact same conversation. And let's not pretend like the third down play call wasn't there.
Okay.
If we're to the point where we're like, hey, Dylan Raiola can't make that throw,
I have a question.
Then what are we doing?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
He wanted them to go for it on fourth down then.
Yes.
So
Which means he wanted to run it on third.
So people are saying 2 downs to make 3 yards.
Yes. Okay. And I'm saying you had a touchdown, take it.
Okay.
You had a touchdown, take it.
So I don't know if that's ludicrous. I don't agree though.
No, I only think it's ludicrous because if it plays out differently and they don't get the fourth down, people are like, why don't you take the points? Why don't you kick the field goal?
So I've seen this play out.
If you don't score on that drive, no one's going to be happy. Like, that's the bottom line. If you don't get points on that drive, no one's happy.
Okay.
And we will second guess the decisions the entire time, no matter what. That's the truth. That's why that's one of these emotional reactions trying to turn into logical explanations. Just be like, hey, we needed to score on that drive. I'm mad we didn't score on that drive.
But I don't think he's being emotional.
I don't know if he is.
Oh.
But in general, the fan base is.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't think he
may not be being emotional.
He's not really like that.
Because maybe if they go for it on fourth down and they don't get it, he's like, hey, that's the right call. I'm cool. Maybe he's like that. But the rest of the fan base goes, hey, why didn't we just kick a field goal and take the points and take the lead?
So we tried this in back-to-back weeks, and then we got the snarky comment versus Maryland in the presser.
Because what was he trying to say? And he wasn't trying to say, oh, well, I changed my mind because you guys got mad at me. He was trying to say, if we don't execute, it doesn't matter what choice we make. That's what he was saying. And it's exactly true last year as it is on Friday. If they don't execute, the choices don't matter. They made the right choice. They had a wide open guy in the end zone.
Yeah.
You have to make the throw. That's it. That's the discussion. And 9 times out of 10, Dylan's going to make the throw.
Yeah, he must have just worded it better than everybody else did because I wasn't getting it. I didn't understand. And maybe it's because I look at it like just make the play.
Yeah, because that's the point. That is the point. Because if you don't make the play, it doesn't matter what you call.
He's one of your best offensive players. Just throw him the ball.
Yeah. And you've got a quarterback who, again, what do you want to say, 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, that throw he makes. That is not a difficult throw. He just missed. It's okay.
Okay. All right. So he's like answering my thoughts for me. It's not about the conversation, Ravi. It's about being the coach and knowing it's 50-50 or worse, you'll make the kick. You have to know that as rule. Are your odds better than 50-50 to get the yards on fourth?
But I'm sitting here listening to the rest of the fan base telling me that Nebraska got pushed around the line of scrimmage the whole game. So is it better than 50-50?
Huh.
Or is your best percentage to let your 5-star phenom quarterback make a throw to a guy that's open in the end zone?
So I feel like this is an amazing Daniel thing. Are we operating under the assumption that he knew he was going to kick the field goal the whole time?
That's what I'm operating under the assumption as. That he was he's like, hey, we're going to drop a play we like. And he said it in the postgame. That wasn't even.
I have a question though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you call the play you do on third down if you're going to settle for if you're going to kick a field goal? I think you're trying to score.
So he addressed this in the postgame. That wasn't the initial read. Dylan saw
he wanted the flats, yeah,
to get the first down. But he said Dylan saw this guy break open and he made the throw. They weren't taking a shot there.
No, I know.
The shot just happened to be open, so they took it. Right? Like that's, and you have to live with that.
Yeah, I think you have to live with his decision making.
Yeah. Dylan's or Coach Rule's?
That's my gut.
Both.
Well, Coach Rule they're obviously trusting in Dylan.
Yeah. And if Dylan sees a guy break open in the end zone, you have to let him throw that ball.
Yeah, this is really weird that I'm processing this real time because I don't have any preconceived thoughts. But my gut says, even though I'm listening to this back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
I think I rest on the fact that as a coach, I put it in the hands of my players because I think that guy's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
So do the rest of us, by the way.
I don't know.
Well, we don't think Raiola's good.
Would I use 2 downs to make 3 yards if I was going for the kill shot? But he's not going for the kill shot.
No, he's going for the lead.
Yeah,
that's it.
No,
I'm sure we'll come back to this tomorrow.
I'll be stewing all day now.
I'm sure we will. That's DBM Ravi Lulla. We'll be back on Tuesday. More Hurrdat Sports Radio.
you. Have a good day. Love you.